Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the D in WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the second part of What If Deku Took Bakugou's advice. All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. With one swift motion, Izuku forcefully pushes the knife blade into his neck and slits his throat. Or he would have, if a strong hand hadn't grabbed his wrist at the last moment. As soon as the kid pressed the knife to his neck, Eraserhead released his quirk and lurched forward. He pulled the hand and knife away from Izuku's welcoming throat, but the blade still managed to cause some damage. Blood trickles down Izuku's neck as he bares his teeth at the hero. Confusion and anger fill his face. What the fuck? Why did you do that? He growls. Eraserhead tightly grips both of Izuku's wrists, his eyes wide with fear. Why did I do that? What the fuck were you thinking? I was thinking, he spits out, that I'd finally get to escape this godforsaken world. But you had to go and fucking ruin it. I'm not going to stand here as you kill yourself. Eraser's voice trembles as he yells. Stop. Just stop. Izuku glares up at the hero, ripping his arms out of the man's grip. Don't you fucking pretend like you care. Don't even think about it. You're just like every other adult out there, so don't fucking pretend like you'll miss me when I die. Eraserhead freezes, his gaze softening. When, more like if at this point, Izuku thinks bitterly to himself. Kid, I don't know what adults you've been around, but I'm not pretending. I would care if you were gone. I do care about you. Izuku stares at the man, his eyes searching for any sign of deceit or falsehood. He finds none. However, the wounds from past betrayals make it difficult for him to fully believe what he says, so Izuku doesn't know if he can fully trust this man yet. I thought you were supposed to be cold and stoic. Eraserhead. He tries to shift the conversation. The tired hero notices the attempted subject change, but with a sigh, he plays along. You're right. Don't tell my students I'm like this. They would never let me live it down. Izuku offers a small smile in response. I'll keep your secret. And with those words, he turns to leave. Before he can get far, Eraserhead speaks again, reaching out and grabbing him by the shoulder. Kid, wait. Before you go, can I trust that you won't attempt something like that again when alone? Izuku looks up at the man, a defeated look in his eye, and lets out a weary sigh. Believe me, if I could, I'd be dead already. Without waiting for a response, Izuku pulls away from Eraserhead and jumps to the next roof before he can see the shocked and confused look on the hero's face. He curses himself for even entertaining the idea that his plan might work. Of course I can't die. The universe fucking hates me, after all. Instead of continuing his patrol, Izuku heads toward the underground ring. I just need to let off some steam. Just a few rounds in the ring can't hurt. Once Shouta's patrol is finished, he instantly calls Detective Tsukachi, reporting on his vigilante case. The detective picks up after 3 rings. Aizawa, what can I help you with? Tsukachi, this kid is suicidal. Nightfall. He asked me to kill him. The man on the other line pauses. What did you do? I tried to talk to him and figure out what was going on. He tried to kill himself. Shouta hates how his voice wavers as he speaks. Tsukachi pauses again. You didn't capture him. He shouldn't be alone at the moment if he's suicidal. Shit. I didn't. It slipped my mind. I wasn't thinking. The detective sighs. Okay, I'm going to put someone else on patrol for the next few nights. I think you need to take a break and get into a better mindset. Shouta grimaces at the idea, but before he can reject it, the detective continues to talk. I've known you for a long time, Aizawa. You need a break. The kid will be safe. I'll make sure of it. Shouta closes his eyes. Okay, thank you, Tsukachi. He hangs up. I don't need a break. I need to be there for nightfall. The tired man begins to boil water for some late-night tea. He reaches for a teacup, but as soon as he gets it off the shelf, it slips through his fingers and drops to the ground, shattering all around him. Shouta just stares. He hears footsteps from the other room and quickly begins to pick up the pieces, not wanting to bother his husband. Sho, is that you? When Hisashi comes into view, he gasps and grabs a broom, rushing over to help. Honey, don't use your hands. You'll cut yourself. Shouta looks up at the worried face of his husband. You were awake. It's so late. Hisashi wouldn't have been able to hear the glass shatter if asleep, since he doesn't sleep with his hearing aids. But he must have been waiting for Shouta to return. I had a bad feeling after everything that's been happening lately. I wasn't able to fall asleep without you. The two discard the broken glass and take the water from the stove, retreating to their room. Hey Hisashi, Shouta begins to speak after the two are curled up under the covers. Today the kid called me. He asked me to kill him. He said only I could do it. I don't know what that means. He's okay now, I think. But Tsukachi took me off patrol for the next week, so I'll be home for a while. Hisashi gazes into his husband's tired eyes as he speaks, nodding along to his words. As awful as that must have been for you to deal with, I'm glad the listener is okay. And I'm glad you'll be home for a while. I've missed you. Shout sighs. Of course he's glad to be home, but he can't help but worry about nightfall. Seemingly sensing his husband's anxious thoughts, Hisashi rests Shout his head on his chest and pets his hair lovingly. It's all going to be okay. He's going to be okay. Let's just sleep, love. What the fuck was this about? As soon as Izuku arrives at the beach, Shinsu shoves his phone into the other's face. What about? Izuku asks, pushing Shinsu's phone away. Hey, if I don't text you by this time tomorrow, meet me at this location. That's what you said. It sounds like you're going on a fucking suicide mission or something. Shinsu's voice is angry, but Izuku can hear the concern behind the words. It was nothing. I just didn't know if. It was nothing, he concludes, avoiding eye contact. And in an instant, arms wrap around him. Izuku tenses, not used to the feeling, but relaxes after a moment. Before he can wrap his arms around the tall boy, Shinsu pulls away. Okay, let's just spar already. I really want to punch your face right now. Izuku just laughs, a small smile on his face. The boys spar for about an hour before Shinsu's complaining gets too loud for Izuku. Can we just take a quick break? I'm hungry, the purple-haired boy whines. Izuku sighs, but isn't able to keep the affection from his voice. Okay fine, you big baby. There's an ice cream place down the road. Shinsu perks up. You're paying, though, Izuku adds, and Shinsu glowers at him. As they sit at the table outside of the shop, Izuku notices a bruise forming on the other's cheek and grimaces. Sorry about your face. Yeah, my dads are gonna think I'm being bullied. He responds with a fake huff of annoyance. Izuku laughs. Not my fault you decided to spar with a pro, Shinsu. The boy smiles back at him. Call me Hitoshi. Izuku stares back at him, eyes wide. Really? Okay. But I've never called someone by their first name before. Shinsu no. Hitoshi just continues with his lazy smile. That's okay. You're like my first friend, so I thought it would be okay. If you want, you can call me by my first name too, Izuku offers, staring shyly at his hands. I would love to, but I don't actually know what your name is, Hitoshi responds with a smirk. Oh shit, yeah I forgot. I mean, you're technically using my first name already. Hitoshi's eyes widen in horror. I didn't know. Izuku's laugh cuts off the other boy before he can freak out more. It's okay, my full name is Izuku, but I don't mind Izu. The two share a smile. My first real friend. Izuku waits on the rooftop for Eraserhead to show up. They had been meeting at that spot for a while, occasionally patrolling together. But Eraserhead didn't show up. Pushing down his unease, Izuku continues on. As he helps bandage a man's arm after he was harmed by a loose villain, Izuku can't help but overthink the situation. Maybe I fucked up my chance of getting closer with Eraser because of last night. I hope not. He had already called the police, letting them know where the villain and victim were. But as he patches up the young man, he feels an intense presence behind him. Endeavor stands towering over the vigilante, glowering at him with flaming eyes. Izuku refuses to react, keeping his voice steady. Where's Eraserhead? The man just scoffs. That weak hero couldn't stay on his patrol, so I'm taking over for now. Anger rises in Izuku's chest as he hears the other call Eraserhead weak. Now, I have you cornered, vigilante. We're going to the police, and this time, Endeavor snarls, I'm going to make sure you get thrown in jail. Izuku knows what he has to do. He runs. He uses his staff to help him get to the roof above, jumping with all his might as he extends it, catapulting him into the air. When he hits the tiles of the roof, he dashes away, hearing the angry voice following him. The chase goes on for a long time. Izuku being the slippery bastard he is, and Endeavor being too stubborn to give up. At one point, the flaming hero gets close enough to the vigilante, aiming his fire at the moving target. The searing pain rushes through Izuku as soon as the blast hits him, burning the back of his leg. The kid tumbles down the roof, falling into an alleyway below. Before Endeavor can catch up, however, he quickly hides himself in a pile of trash. He stifles his gags, the sickening smell surrounding him. Closing his eyes, Izuku tries to breathe, but all he can think about is the pain of the burn, bringing back memories of the past. The sound of Bakugou's explosions echo through his head and he covers his ears with his hands. It doesn't help. After hiding long enough for Endeavor to leave, spitting curses as he goes, Izuku climbs out of the trash, staggering forward and falling harshly onto the ground. He can't put pressure on his leg without it causing a shudder of pain to flow through his whole body. So he limps home, practically crawling half of the way. When he arrives on his doorstep, he can barely see through his tears. He shoves the door open and collapses in the entryway. As soon as the door slams shut behind him, Izuku rips his knife out from the holder on his side. Slitting my wrists takes too long. I don't want to feel this anymore. Even 10 minutes is too long. I need a faster method. And so, thinking back to his last conversation with Eraserhead and the research he's done, Izuku holds the knife up to his throat, pressing the blade into his skin, and roughly slits his throat. He's dead in moments. Hey, wanna train today? Shinsu, sure, meet at the beach in 30. Yeah. Izuku stares at the message for a minute before changing the other's contact name from Shinsu to Hitoshi. He puts down the phone and starts his walk to the beach. Upon arriving, Hitoshi is already there. Izuku smiles at the tall boy, but it doesn't reach his eyes. Since this isn't when we'd usually hang out and spar, I usually just train on these days. Do you want to run with me? Hitoshi grimaces. Not really. I hate running. Izuku just shrugs, starting his warm-up stretches. If you want to get into UA, you should work on your whole body, not just on sparring. You need to improve your stamina and strength as well. Hitoshi just glares at him, but begrudgingly begins to stretch as well. Izuku is glad when they begin the run. It allows him to clear his mind. Unfortunately for him, every time his pant leg rubs against his left leg, a jolt of pain shoots up his body. Burns are hard to deal with, even with his quirk. They heal after dying, but stay sore and sensitive to the touch for a while. Even the scars on his shoulders from Bakugou still burn every once in a while. But as he runs, the pain gets worse with every step. Izu, let's stop for a second. Hitoshi pants, hands on his knees. I can't keep up. And what's wrong with your leg? You're limping. Izuku tenses. Nothing, just a small injury. My pants keep rubbing against it so it's uncomfortable. There, I didn't give anything away but answered the question still. That should make him stop pushing. It doesn't. Well, we're right by my house actually. We can stop by and grab a pair of shorts for you. The tired boy offers, motioning toward where his house must be. No, that's okay. Thanks, but I'll manage. Izuku turns away, hoping that's the end of the conversation. I need some water anyways, so we can just stop by real quick. He continues as if Izuku hadn't spoken and begins walking toward the apartment complex. Only one of my dads is home, but he's probably sleeping right now. Izuku reluctantly follows Hitoshi, arriving at his house after a short walk. Before opening the front door of the apartment, Hitoshi turns toward the smaller boy. You're not allergic to cats, are you? He shakes his head. Okay, good, we have 3. Hitoshi opens the door, revealing a fluffy white cat. That's Princess, but don't let the name fool you. She's an absolute menace. Izuku's eyes widen in awe as he squats down, reaching a hand out to pet the cat. Princess turns her head as Izuku pets her soft fur, her eyes staring into his soul. Well, she's so pretty. Yeah, you could say that. Hitoshi takes off his shoes and walks over to the living room. My dad's asleep out here, but come meet Bastard real quick. Bastard? That's our other cat. My dad found him in a trash can outside. Izuku walks over, excited to meet the second cat, but once he peers over the couch, he freezes. Don't worry, he sleeps like the dead. You won't wake him, Hitoshi says, noticing the green-haired boy's hesitation. But that wasn't why he froze. No, he froze because on the couch, under the short-haired gray cat, lay the one and only Eraserhead. His dark eyes are closed and he's wearing a black shirt with a picture of a cat on it. Izuku gulps, taking a step back. Can we go get the shorts? Sure, Sushi is probably upstairs too. That's our newest kitten. Hitoshi leads the anxious boy upstairs to his room. Upon entering, Izuku takes in his surroundings. There are purple LED lights lining the wall, where many posters of bands and heroes sit. Hitoshi walks to his dresser, grabbing out a pair of shorts and tossing them to Izuku. I'm going to grab water. Come on down when you've changed. After downing a cup of water, Hitoshi waits for Izu to return downstairs. He had reacted strangely to seeing his dad, but he wasn't sure why. I know he knows who Eraserhead is. I wonder if he recognized him. Before he can contemplate it more, the freckled boy descends the stairs and begins to slide his shoes back on. Hitoshi quickly follows. Once outside, the questions begin. You have 2 dads, right? Izu tilts his head, his voice trying to portray it as an innocent question, but his eyes give him away. Hitoshi can tell there's something he's missing, but not knowing what, he just answers the question. Yeah, Pops usually works during the day. Are you related to one of them by blood? Hitoshi shakes his head. Nah, I was adopted when I was 9. Before that, I had been moving from house to house in foster care. He pauses at the bad memory. I never stayed at a house for longer than a year. None of them wanted me because of my quirk. The memory of the muzzle flashes in his mind, but he quickly banishes the thought with a shudder. Oh, I'm sorry. What's your quirk? At this, Izuku holds nothing but curiosity behind his eyes. Hitoshi pauses, debating his options. He doesn't seem like the type of person who would be prejudiced, but I don't know. I guess it's better to tell him sooner than later though. I can control people with my mind. Brainwashing. The tall boy looks to the ground, fiddling with his hands, awaiting the backlash from his words. But it doesn't come. Instead, Izu stops walking, eyes wide with awe. Really? That's so awesome. Is there something needed to happen to activate it? Hitoshi gives the boy a puzzled look. Awesome? Yeah, I need to get a verbal response, then I can control them with verbal commands. Whoa, that's such a cool quirk. You could be an amazing hero with that. You could stop fights before they even begin, or calm down victims. It's the perfect quirk to de-escalate situations cause you just need a few words. You're going to be an amazing hero with that. Izu rambles on, looking like he has stars in his eyes. Hitoshi, on the other hand, has tears in his. Nobody has ever immediately believed him not to be villainous when he told them his quirk, with the exception of his current parents. But Izu thinks I can be a hero. Before the tears can spill out, Hitoshi pushes the boy's scarred face away from his, cutting off the excited rambling. Okay, shut up, Freckles. Let's just continue running. Izuku looks disappointed for a moment, but then shrugs and begins to jog. As Hitoshi watches the short boy in front of him, he realizes Izu is still limping. His eyes are drawn downward, landing on the boy's leg. A large, dark burn scar lays there, covering over half of his calf. It looks healed, but still new, the scar still a dark pink color. Hitoshi can feel his chest filling with worry. Hey, Izu. The scarred face turns toward him slightly, a small smile on his lips as he continues jogging. What happened to your leg? Instantly, the smile is gone and the tenseness back in Izuku's shoulders. Instead of responding, he picks up the pace, turning the light jog into an intense run. He knows Hitoshi can't keep up, and Hitoshi knows that too. So he glares at Izuku's back as he slowly gets further away. Someday he's going to have to open up and actually allow people to help him, he thinks with gritted teeth. But until then, I'll be here and support him along the way if that's how to get him through it alive. They run the rest of the way in silence. Izuku doesn't know what he did to make Endeavor hate him so much. Well, except for that time he kicked him in the face, and when he spat on him, and perhaps the fact that he called him a fake hero with an overinflated ego. But besides those minor incidents, the vigilante is confused about what the source of the number 2 hero's anger is. After an intense pursuit that lasts nearly an hour as he narrowly dodged Endeavor's attacks, Izuku finds himself cornered in a dead end. Endeavor closes in, his face contorted with rage. Flames burst forth as the hero steps closer, and Izuku twists to shield his body, but the flames end up scorching his side. Izuku hisses in pain, jerking away from the fire as he instinctively grabs a knife from his side and hurls it carelessly at the approaching hero. The blade flies through the air, slicing Endeavor's cheek and drawing blood. Taken aback by the surprise attack, the hero hesitates, but Izuku does not. Seizing the opportunity, he swiftly climbs onto a nearby building, sliding down its roof. Before Endeavor can give chase, he clumsily lands on the ground and disappears into the sewage vents. The young vigilante navigates through the ducts quickly, using them as an escape route like he has done countless times in the past to evade muggers and creepy old men. As he emerges from the vents, he gasps in pain as the effort puts strain on his fresh burn. He drags himself to the nearest wall and props himself up between 2 trash cans. His hand trembles around a knife as he attempts to calm his breathing. I can't make it home. I need to stop the burning. As he slits his wrists and waits for the dizziness to overtake him, Izuku can't help his thoughts from drifting to the painful memories of Bakugou's explosions. Shout arrives at the station early in the morning, only to be met with an angry, flaming man. He had wanted to check with Tsukachi on how Nightfall had been doing, but instead, he instantly gets an earful of Endeavor's enraged outburst. He tried to kill me. It wasn't an accident. He aimed the knife right at my face. Shouta scoffs at this statement, knowing well that if Nightfall wanted to kill him, the hero would be severely injured right now. Just throwing a knife was most likely a distraction, not an attempt to actually inflict harm. Endeavor continues to vent his anger, yelling about disrespect, and how the vigilante called him a tyrant and an egoistic narcissist, along with many other, much worse names. Shouta, personally, finds it hilarious. He has to bite back the laugh that threatens to escape as Endeavor yells. The next words that come from his mouth, however, Shouta finds much more concerning. He has a quirk, I know it. He lied in the interrogation. He has to have a healing quirk, Endeavor growls, jabbing a finger in Tsukachi's face. The detective's expression stays even. And why do you think that, Endeavor? I can assure you that he didn't lie, unless you are accusing me of being untruthful. The hero's scowl only deepens. No, he must have bypassed it somehow. That slimy bastard. He takes a step back, glaring down at the detective. I burned his leg on patrol 2 nights ago, attempting to slow him down, but last night he didn't even limp when I was chasing him. A cold, tense silence fills the room, but Endeavor doesn't notice. He isn't fireproof. When he was hit today, I could see the burn already forming on his back and side. Before he can continue, Shouta shoves past the so-called hero. Put me back on the case. His voice is eerily calm, despite the anger dancing in his dark eyes. Tsukachi stares at him for a moment, before nodding and beginning to type on his computer. Shouta turns to leave but pauses in front of Endeavor. If you ever lay your hands on that child again, he growls, emphasizing the word child. I can guarantee that you will never become the number 1 hero. You will not walk away unharmed, Endeavor. And with that, Shouta storms out of the station, leaving a stunned and terrified hero behind. As he walks, attempting to cool down his rage, Shouta's mind is consumed by thoughts of Nightfall, and a time he was injured on patrol. He never seemed affected the day after. He always comes right back the next day, full strength. Despite all his scars, Shouta has never seen the kid with an actual wound unless he also witnessed the attack. Maybe he has access to a healer. I know he mentioned that one of his friends only knows him as Nightfall. Maybe he has a healing quirk. Izuku groans as he awakens, his back aching as it presses against the hard wall behind him. Taking in his surroundings, he realizes he's sitting in a dimly lit back alley, wedged between two trash cans. Oh, I didn't go home last night. Attempting to rise, Izuku winces. The ache in his side still lingers, a gentle burn accompanying his every movement. He attempts to take a step forward, but his legs give way and he collapses onto the ground. He's alone, hungry, and disoriented. Izuku doesn't know what to do. All he knows is that he's far away from home and very unable to walk there himself. The realization dawns on him about what to do, and he deeply does not want to do it. But he needs help. With a heavy sigh, Izuku retrieves his phone. I can't text Shinsu. I'm still in my vigilante gear. I could text Eraserhead, or maybe Bakugou. Yeah, I can do that. You, hey, Rufri RN. The response comes instantly. Bakugou, WTF do you want, rat? Bakugou, you still need to explain those previous messages. You, I will, but can you come get me? You, I can't walk. Bakugou, no fuck you. Bakugou, send our location, bitch. Izuku smiles faintly as he sends his location before setting down the phone. I think I just need a little nap. When Izuku wakes this time, he opens his eyes to see a terrified Bakugou leaning over him, shaking him awake. I'm up. You can stop shaking me now, he says groggily. Bakugou's initial expression of terror morphs into anger. You fucking asshole, why the fuck would you stay out here? You smell like shit, he scolds, though he can't stop the concern that creeps into his voice. Oh, yeah, I died last night, Izuku casually replies, causing the blonde's anger to spike further. What the fuck? How? What happened? He demands. Doesn't matter. Help me stand up. I'm hungry. With a growl, Bakugou pulls the injured boy to his feet, supporting his weight by looping an arm around his back and sliding Izuku's arm over his shoulders. Fuck you. After coming out here, I think I deserve to know what happened. No, you don't. Just take me home. At this, Bakugou stops walking, glaring at the vigilante. No, what happened? I'm not taking you anywhere until you tell me. Izuku grits his teeth, but after debating in his head, he lets out a defeated sigh, knowing he can't walk on his own. Fine, fucking asshole, he relents, guiding Bakugou toward his house. The hero I usually encounter on patrol wasn't there the past 2 nights. Instead, they put a new one in his place. He's a lot more aggressive. That's one word for it. And, he killed you. No, of course not. He attacked me though, fucking Endeavor. You met the number 2 hero, and he attacked you. Bakugou asks, unable to hide the awe and shock in his voice. Is that how you died? Izuku hesitates, contemplating whether to tell the truth. No, he caused these burns on my side though. He turns his body to show the other boy the injuries, causing the blonde's face to pale. And I can't stand the feeling of burns, so Icoled myselfine elevato scapithepane. Izuku blurts out, speaking the last part as fast as he can, hoping Bakugou wouldn't catch it. You killed yourself. Bakugou stares at him in disbelief and anger. You fucking idiot. Izuku waits for him to continue, but he doesn't. Instead, he lets the words hang in the air, scowling deeply. I just hope I don't have to see Endeavor again. Izuku attempts to shift the conversation. Really? You used Bakugou instantly cuts himself off, regrouping his thoughts before speaking again. You don't like heroes? Izuku gives the boy a puzzled look. No, I like heroes, but some are fake or just assholes. I don't like the assholes. Yeah, Bakugou snorts a laugh. Endeavor will never be as cool as All Might. At the name, Izuku tenses, causing the blonde to glance at him curiously. He scowls. I fucking hate All Might the most. Bakugou's face fills with confusion. He opens his mouth to speak, but Izuku spots a familiar building and interrupts before the other can get the words out. Hey, I'm hungry. Can we stop by that cafe? Bakugou stares at him for another few moments before turning to where Izuku is pointing. With a sigh, he begrudgingly agrees. Fine. They give me free food all the time, so it shouldn't take long. Bakugou sighs again, rolling his eyes. You can barely stand by yourself, rat. Stay here, I'll go get the food. Tell them Kaboyashi sent you. Izuku calls after the blonde, struggling to maintain his balance. Bakugou shoots him a confused glance before entering the store. After a few minutes, he emerges with 2 boxes of food. Scowling, he shoves a box into Izuku's hands. You're welcome, and I don't know what you were talking about, but the food here isn't free, idiot. Izuku just stares at him, baffled. What? Are you sure? Bakugou rolls his eyes. No, I just gave them 3,000 yen for no reason. Yes, I'm fucking sure, he says, watching as Izuku rummages through his pockets. And no, I don't want your fucking money. Izuku just glares, forcefully shoving a wad of cash into Bakugou's hands, before stomping toward the building. Wait here, and turn around. I'm taking off my mask. Izuku yanks off his hood and unzips the mask, pushing open the front door with a surge of anger. His unstable legs struggle to keep him upright as he storms to the back of the store, paying no mind to the fact that he's not allowed there. Spotting present Mike in a small office at the rear, Izuku confronts the man. "You fucking lied to me," Izuku spits out. Mike's eyes widen, taking in the kid's appearance. "Kaboyashi, you're covered in blood. Don't change the subject," he seethes. "You told me the food here was free, but that was a fucking lie. I'm not a goddamn charity case. I can pay for my own fucking meals." The blonde's expression softens, concern still etched across his face. "I didn't mean to make you think I lied, Green Bean. I just thought you could use the food in the comfort of cats. I didn't realize it meant so much to you. I'm truly sorry." Some of Izuku's anger dissipates at the sincerity of Mike's words. But unsure of how to respond, he simply turns around and leaves the store. Bakugou waits outside, but as the door swings open, the blonde averts his gaze and Izuku hurriedly pulls his hood and mask back up, hoping the other didn't see his face. "We're leaving, Bakugou." Now, staring at the retreating vigilante, Bakugou stands there, baffled. "The fuck? Don't tell me what to do, fucking rat." Nevertheless, he quickly follows Izuku, grabbing the food the other left behind. "That blonde guy who gave me the food seemed to know you well. I don't see the problem, since he's the owner of the cafe. He can give you free food if he wants to," Bakugou remarks offhandedly. "The owner." Izuku makes a mental note. Shouta spots Nightfall perched on a rooftop near the end of his patrol and silently makes his way over to the boy, taking a seat near him. He keeps his gaze fixed on the stars, like usual, so Shouta has to initiate the conversation. "Hey kid, I wanted to apologize to you," he begins. Nightfall glances at the hero momentarily before returning his gaze to the sky. "I'm sorry I let Endeavor hurt you and that I left my patrol in the first place. I won't do that again." His voice comes out remorseful, but Shouta quickly drains it of emotion. Finally, the kid speaks, his tone guarded. "It doesn't matter. I can protect myself." Shouta frowns. Where had this deep-seated distrust of adults come from? "Still, I'm sorry." Guilt tugs at his chest as he notices the burn scar on the boy's exposed torso. "Wait, scar? That happened a few days ago. It couldn't have scared so quickly. He must have a healer close by then." As they sit in silence, Shouta carefully observes Nightfall's injuries more. The prominent burn scar on his side trails to his back and under his shirt. It looks fresh, likely causing him pain still. As the hero continues to observe the vigilante's wounds, he notices the burn scars on his shoulders. "Those burns on your shoulders, they're not from Endeavor, are they?" Shouta knows they're not, but he hopes the kid will shed more light on the matter if he asks. Nightfall shakes his head. "No, those are from..." He pauses, as if deliberately choosing the right words. "They're from the past. The reason I hate burns." A wave of sadness washes over Shouta as he mourns the child before him. They continue their small talk for a while longer, but Nightfall remains evasive, refusing to delve deeper into any topic. He absent-mindedly fiddles with the bag at his side before standing abruptly. "I've got to get home, so goodbye, and thank you." He pauses, averting his gaze as if embarrassed to show vulnerability. "Thank you for checking on me. Verd, you're back." The bouncer greets the weary boy with a cheerful smile. Izuku offers a half-hearted one in return. "Yeah, probably won't fight today, though." The bouncer nods understandingly as he opens the door for Izuku to pass through. After his encounter with Eraserhead, the vigilante realized he's running low on his trusted gadgets. He stopped by his house to grab the jars of blood he'd been collecting before heading to the market. He stops by the blood trader's stall first, setting down his jars on the counter with a thud. The merchant grins widely at him. "The people have been loving the blood you bring. It must come from someone with a powerful quirk." Izuku stares at the man for a moment before lowering his head down and retrieving his money. He visits a few more booths on the first level, before moving to the one above. He stops in front of a particular stall, the woman running it staring intensely at him, as if attempting to draw him in. Izuku approaches the booth and observes the array of potions on display. His eyes are drawn to a glowing blue vial with a label that reads Memory Revival. "How do these work?" he asks, motioning toward the potion. The woman smiles. "You can take one to regain any memories lost within the last 3 months. Take more for a memories further back. Though occasionally a single drink will bring back recollections from long ago. Just remember to never consume more than 3 within a 24 hours period." Izuku's thoughts turn to his limited funds, having spent most of it on other supplies and gadgets. "And what form of payment do you take? What form do you have? Do you take blood as a payment?" The woman eyes him suspiciously. "I only accept fresh blood and human parts, wherever you got the blood. It wouldn't be fresh enough for me. I've seen you wandering around for over an hour now." Izuku just rolls his eyes. "Do you have a bowl?" She nods skeptically, retrieving one from inside her booth and placing it on the table. Izuku flashes a fake smile. "Good. I'll get you the freshest blood you've had in a while." Without hesitation, he grabs a knife from his side and slices his wrist, dragging the blade horizontally across the veins. The merchant's eyes widen at the sight, but she remains silent. Izuku makes another cut and the bowl quickly fills, nearly spilling over. Okay, that's enough. I don't need any more. The woman finally speaks up, her voice tinged with worry. He smiles to himself, swiftly bandaging his wrists as she pushes a few small vials forward. That will pay for 5. I'd love to have you return if you like how they work. Izuku nods, pocketing the glowing bottles. Back at home, Izuku sits on his bed and uncorks one of the vials, the liquid inside emitting a soft glow. He hesitates for a moment, unsure if he should drink it. What if it's poison? Or maybe some type of curse? Ultimately, he concludes that it wouldn't matter either way. So in one swift motion, Izuku throws his head back and drowns the potion. Instantly, darkness fills his senses. Izuku lies bundled up in his All Might covers, attempting to sleep, but worry gnaws at his chest. His mom had informed him that she would be going on vacation starting tomorrow, leaving Izuku uncertain about how he will manage on his own. Not wanting to think about it, he squeezes his eyes shut, desperately trying to push the thoughts away. His door creaks open, casting a sliver of light across his small body. Izuku stays still, trying to even out his breathing. If she's drunk, I need to pretend to be asleep. But it's not the usual drunken state that she enters with. Instead, she kneels beside the sleeping child, leaning her arms on the edge of the bed. I'm so sorry, Izuku, she whispers, her voice watery and filled with emotion he hasn't heard from her in years. I'm so sorry. Izuku fights the urge to open his eyes and offer comfort. But she would probably be upset if she discovered he was awake at this late hour. So, he keeps his eyes closed and listens in silence as she cries and pleads with his sleeping form to forgive her. Izuku experiences fleeting flashes of other memories, though none as vivid or prolonged as the initial one. He sees himself falling through the sky, the buildings growing taller above him as he plummets. He sees the cold, hard metal of a gun pushing against his temple, wielded by a terrified villain. He sees blood, so much blood, pooling all around him. He sees fists pummeling his face relentlessly. But then, Izuku sees something he didn't expect. He sees Bakugou, reaching out to him, his eyes wide with panic and fear. He watches as the blonde pulls him back onto the rooftop, gently laying him down. And then he hears the screams. Bakugou screams his name, over and over again. He yells at himself, at the world, even at Izuku. All the dying boy can do is watch through half-lidded eyes. And then that memory fades, replaced with another. Izuku slowly rises from the bed, his head throbbing. He had witnessed his own death for nearly 4 straight hours. I suppose dying almost every day for the past 3.5 months would do that. The woman at the booth had mentioned the possibility of regaining memories from further back than 3 months. But he hadn't expected it to be from when he was 8 years old. The day after his mother's tearful apology, she left on vacation and never returned. As the memories of Bakugou's anguished screams fill his mind, Izuku's eyes widen in horror. Oh fuck, he knows. What do I do? He decides to go for a walk, hoping fresh air will help soothe his throbbing headache. As he strolls through the streets, he thinks back to his childhood. Bakugou used to sneak into his room at night when they were 5 years old. Climbing through the unlocked window, he would kick Izuku awake, urging him to grab flashlights and comics. The two would hide under the covers, reading stories about heroes and All Might until they eventually fell asleep. Izuku recalls the first time Bakugou used his quirk on him. At the age of 6, he followed the blonde boy into the forest. Bakugou had yelled at him to go home, but Izuku didn't think it was safe for the young boy to be alone, so he refused. That's when Bakugou shoved him, triggering a series of explosions from his palms. Izuku had started crying, and Bakugou looked surprised, but he never apologized. He simply left the sobbing boy behind. Izuku's thoughts drift to his last day of school, Bakugou burning him and saying those cursed words. Take a swan dive off the roof. That had marked the end of their supposed friendship. But now, Bakugou knew who he was. Yet Izuku hadn't seen or heard any explosions from the boy since school. Bakugou hadn't bullied him, he didn't taunt him or push him around. But he knew that Nightfall was Izuku. Maybe their relationship could be mended after all. He needs to talk to Bakugou. Hey, can you come meet me? I want to talk. I'm not dead or anything. Bakugou, send the location fucker. Izuku sits on an empty swing set. It's late at night, so the playground is empty. He waits, contemplating what to say when the other arrives. Once he spots the blonde figure in the distance, he waves Bakugou over and motions for him to take a seat on the adjacent swing. Before Bakugou can ask, Izuku speaks up. I got my memories back. All of them. I heard what you said. Seeing as Izuku isn't in his vigilante gear, wearing no mask or hood, Bakugou likely assumed that something of the sort happened. He nods, looking down. I knew it. How long have you known it was me? Izuku asks, his gaze fixed on Bakugou's face. The blonde meets his eyes, searching for something. I had my suspicions since the first few encounters. When Izuku doesn't say anything, Bakugou continues. I have so much I need to say to you. I should have never treated you the way I did. I shouldn't have done the things I had done or said the things I said. I'm sorry, Izuku. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted to apologize anyways. Tears well up in Bakugou's eyes, and he blinks angrily, trying to get rid of them. Izuku has his own tears to worry about. I forgave you a long time ago, Bakugou. The blonde jerks his head up, finally allowing the tears to escape. He stares for a moment in silence. Katsuki, call me Katsuki. Izuku gives him a watery smile, nodding. Okay, Katsuki. It's quiet for a moment, then the green-haired boy speaks again. I didn't expect to forgive you, but after hearing everything you said, after seeing how you've changed, it wasn't a hard decision. He stands, stepping closer to the teary-eyed blonde. Izuku wraps his arms around Katsuki, who tenses under his touch. After a beat of silence, he relaxes, bringing his arms around Izuku's shoulders. They remain that way for a moment, shedding silent tears in their tight embrace. Bakugou is the one to break it. Okay, that's enough, nerd. He pulls away, looking down at the other's misty, green eyes. We're never speaking of this again. Got that? Izuku chokes out a wet laugh, nodding. They fall into a comfortable silence, both minds racing with their own thoughts. You should come to UA. With me, Bakugou suggests suddenly, glancing at Izuku, who gapes back. But I'm quirkless. No, you're not, dumbass. Oh yeah, true. But this isn't a quirk that's supposed to exist. And I fight quirkless anyways. Besides, on my file it states that I'm definitely quirkless, he rambles on. Oi, shut up. You're fine. You can fight just fine anyways. Besides, if you don't fucking die in front of them or use it in combat, do you really have to tell anyone? Izuku's eyes bulge out of his skull. You want me to lie? Bakugou just scoffs. You're literally a criminal and you're fussing over a small lie. I'm not a criminal, I'm a vigilante, he counters. Yeah, which is illegal, fuckwad. Izuku stares at him before feigning to laugh. Okay fine, let's say I can pass the entrance exam without a quirk, then get in with the lie. I don't even know when anything is or what to study. I'm planning on going to UA, too, so I can obviously help, idiot. Bakugou begins to sway slightly on the swing. The entrance exams start at the end of next week. I bet Auntie and Co will be overjoyed to have you going to that high school. At this, Izuku flinches, earning a confused look from Bakugou. He quickly changes the subject. You know, I have another friend who's also trying to get into UA. You have friends? Bakugou mocks. Shut up, asshole. I have two. Well, that's assuming I can count you as a friend. Izuku phrases it as a question, hoping the other will catch on and respond. He just raises an eyebrow. Tell me about the other friend. Other? His name's Hitoshi. Well, Shinsu to you. He has a super cool quirk but has faced a lot of backlash because of it. He doesn't know I'm Nightfall, but he's super cool. I think you guys would get along. Oh, and get this. One of his dads is Eraserhead. Bakugou looks at him in confusion. Eraserhead? Yeah, he's my favorite hero ever. He fights quirkless since his quirk is erasure. He can erase people's quirks just by looking at them. It's super cool. He's an underground hero, so I've met him a bunch of times. He's not as cold as he wants people to think, either. He's helped me a lot and is always super caring. He gives off dad vibes, to be honest. As Izuku rambles on, Bakugou listens, trying to act uninterested. However, the glint in his eye gives away his interest at the green-haired boy's words. Some things never change. I told my friend about you. Eraserhead glances at him, intrigued. Which friend? The one I used to know. It turns out he knew it was me all along, so I was able to meet up with him without my Nightfall disguise. Izuku replies, a warm smile gracing his face. Eraserhead simply nods. You look happy, kid. I'm glad. He stands, changing the topic. I have to break up a drug trade on the east side tonight, so you'll be alone. Will you be okay? Izuku rolls his eyes playfully. Of course I will, old man. I don't need you watching over me 24/7. For the last time, I'm not old, the hero scowls. Izuku shrugs with a smug smile. Whatever you say, old man. Before Eraserhead can yell at him, Izuku steps off the roof, gracefully swinging to the ground. He skips happily along the road, only returning to the rooftops when he's certain he's left Eraser's line of sight. As he walks through the night, humming to himself, he encounters only a few minor criminals. The last encounter, however, surprises Izuku. He spots a familiar head of purple hair slowly walking the moonlit streets, headphones on, oblivious to his surroundings. Izuku decides to follow him, ensuring he gets home safely. But before Hitoshi can reach the street his apartment is on, a man jumps out from an alleyway brandishing a knife. Izuku quickly jumps from the roof, planning to intervene, but Hitoshi beats him to it. As the man grabs his arm, Hitoshi startles, dropping his phone. The screen cracks upon impact, and Hitoshi throws a punch. It connects with the mugger's jaw, causing him to stumble back. Izuku can't help but feel proud of the tired boy. Without hesitation, he rushes forward, delivering a powerful kick to the criminal's stomach. As he's thrown back, the vigilante quickly advances. The man stands, regaining his balance as he holds the knife out threateningly. Izuku dodges the slashes, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He lands a solid punch to the man's face, snapping his head back. The criminal growls before lunging forward, knife slashing through the air. Izuku doesn't dodge the attack, allowing the man to get closer so he can land the finishing blow. The blade cuts across his cheek, blood soaking through his mask. But Izuku remains focused. He extends his staff, and the man is thrown back by the impact, hitting the ground hard. Izuku rushes over to him and binds his wrists before he can recover. He pulls out his phone and, with a few quick taps, sends the location to the police. Thanks to his earlier hacking into the police station's databases, Izuku now has access to various phone numbers, including the police officers and detectives. And so, he easily found the number of the detective who had interrogated him, the one with the lie-detecting quirk. When Izuku had first contacted the detective's number a few days ago, the man had been extremely taken aback and highly concerned. But now, he didn't even question it, just accepted the vigilante's texts and sent police to his location. Izuku also managed to obtain the numbers of many top heroes, using the information to send Endeavor numerous offensive and insulting texts. The memory brings a mischievous smile to Izuku's face, but his attention is pulled back to the present by a voice behind him. "Thank you for the help. Your nightfall, right?" Izuku nods, not trusting the mask to completely disguise his voice. "Cool. Is your face okay?" "That looks like a bad cut," Hitoshi remarks, concern showing more in his eyes than his voice. Izuku nods again, listening to the distant wails of police sirens, offering one last nod of farewell to Hitoshi. He ascends to a nearby roof and disappears into the night. Izuku wakes up outside his house, observing the rubble and dirt that he lies on. "Oh yeah, I died right before making it inside." He grimaces at the memory of the woman who killed him. Her quirk allowed her to create and control poisonous arrows, and she had struck Izuku 3 times before he was able to detain her. Grumbling, he checks his phone. "Shit, it's almost time for me to meet up with Shinsu." The freckled boy dashes inside, throwing on the first clean clothes he can find, before running to the beach. Arriving slightly out of breath, Izuku lands on the ground in front of a disinterested-looking Hitoshi, who raises an eyebrow. "You're late, by the way." I know, Izuku grumbles, sitting up and dusting the sand off him. "Oh, I decided to try and get into UA." This gets his attention. "Really? What changed your mind?" "One of my friends convinced me. He said since he wants to get in too, then I should give it a shot." "That's what I said too." Izuku laughs at Hitoshi's offended tone. "I know, but I've known Katsuki since childhood, so he reminded me of a promise we made to be heroes together when we were young." Hitoshi nods. "We should all meet up and study together. The entrance exams are coming up soon." As much as Izuku wants his friends to get along, the thought scares him a bit. Katsuki is, well, he's a lot, to say the least. Hitoshi just gives him a questioning look in Izuku's eyes. "He's kind of an asshole." Hitoshi laughs. "Me too, it's okay." "Nobody's on a whole different level," Izuku insists. The tired boy just shrugs, giving Izuku a lazy smile. Then, his eyebrows furrow and he squints his eyes. "Hey, where'd you get that scar?" Izuku instinctively covers his cheek with his hand, hiding the fresh scar he received while saving Hiroshi the night before. I don't know. I think I got it when I was younger," he lies. "No, I've never seen it before." Izuku cuts him off with a glare, dropping his act of confusion. Hitoshi just huffs a sigh. "Okay, whatever. Give me Katsuki's number, or create a group chat or something." Izuku smiles as he grabs his phone. "This is going to be interesting." Fucking group chat. Green Bean has added Explosion Murder God to the group chat. Green Bean has added Insomniac to the group chat. Green Bean, hey. Hitoshi said we should all hang out and study for the entrance exam together. Explosion Murder God changed their name to Great Explosion Murder God. Great Explosion Murder God. WTF would I want to spend more time with you? Great Explosion Murder God. I don't need to study anyways. I'm gonna ace the test. Insomniac. Ah, I see what you mean, Izu. Green Bean, Elmao told you. Great Explosion Murder God. TF. Great Explosion Murder God changed the chat name to fucking group chat. Green Bean, I know a cute cat cafe near my house. How does Sunday work to meet up? Insomniac, sure, I can be there around 12. Green Bean, that works for me. Great Explosion Murder God, fuck you both. Great Explosion Murder God, are you gonna send the address or not? Fucking idiot. Green Bean, Great Explosion Murder God, middle finger. Green Bean, Insomniac, WTF you guys are weird ass. Green Bean, lesser than 3. The first thing Hisashi notices is the yelling. He watches from the back of the cat cafe as an angry blonde storms through the front door, neglecting to hold it for those who follow behind him. The owner recognizes the boy from a few days ago when he requested free food. He had paid without issue after being informed that the meals came at a cost. leaving with a scowl and 2 boxed meals. The second person enters through the door, taller than the first, and holds the door open with a bored expression. This person, Hisashi also recognizes, mainly because it's his son. Feeling perplexed, Hisashi wonders if the angry blonde is the Izu that his son often talks about. That's when a third individual enters the store, Kabayashi, followed behind Hitoshi, wearing a guilty expression. He is dressed in regular clothes with no signs of blood on him. Hisashi hears his son offering to pay, before walking to the back. Once out of sight of the other 2 boys, Hitoshi looks at his father with excitement shining in his eyes. "I'm so glad you're working today. That's the guy I've been telling you about, Izu. And the blonde one is his childhood friend," Hitoshi explains, speaking fast. Hisashi can only stare. "Izu? Well, Izuku is his full name, but yeah, he's the friend I mentioned." Hisashi gapes at his son before bursting into laughter, earning a perplexed glance from the purple-haired boy. "I can't believe it. This is such a big coincidence." "What? Izu, your friend, is also the kiddo who's been coming here and getting free meals from me for the past months. Except, get this, he told me his name was Kabayashi." Hitoshi's mouth curves into a large grin. "He told me a fake name at first too, actually. It's kind of funny when you think about it." Hisashi just smiles, grateful that his son had made such a good friend. Just as Hitoshi is about to return to the front, Kabayashi no Izuku approaches the blonde owner sheepishly. His son returns to the front, offering the nervous boy a lazy smile as he passes. Izuku stands in front of Hisashi, staring at the ground and fiddling with his hands. "I'm sorry for how rude I was last time. I shouldn't have done that." He takes out a wad of cash from his pocket and holds it out to the hero. "Here, take this. I know it won't be enough to cover the amount of meals and time I've been here, but—" "No, kiddo," Hisashi interrupts. "I'm not going to take your money. I gave you the food because I wanted to, so I don't need you to pay me back." The green bean stares at him with worried eyes. "But I have to pay you back," he frets. "How about this? I'll take 15 yen for the meal today, but that's it. You have to keep the rest." After a moment of hesitation, Izuku nods. He hands the hero the money and with one last bow and apology, returns to his friends. As Hitoshi waits for Izu to return, he observes the boy sitting across from him. Katsuki returns his stare, seemingly trying to size him up. The blonde scowls at him. "Your name is Katsuki, right?" Hitoshi attempts, but the other stays silent, diverting his attention to the cats surrounding him. "Wow, rude." Finally, Izuku returns, balancing plates of food in his hands. "Here we go. This place has the best food ever." Katsuki fiddles with something in his ear as Izu talks. He glares at the freckled boy. "Huh, what you say?" Izuku just sighs, seemingly used to this behavior. "Cat, you can't just turn off your hearing aids when you don't want to talk to people." Ignoring the blonde's scowl, he turns to Hitoshi. "I'm sorry if he was being rude. I'd like to say he's easier to be around as you get to know him, but I think it's more accurate to say that I've just grown used to him." Hitoshi snorts a laugh as Katsuki's head whips toward Izuku. "The fuck did you just say, shitty rat?" Izuku ignores him. "I got some textbooks from the library that should help with the exam. Afterward, we should train together." He turns to Hitoshi again. "Have you practiced your mind control on people before? I'd be happy to help if I can." Hitoshi pauses. "Would he really want to be brainwashed in order to help me?" No, I haven't practiced it much, but—" "Shut up, you fucking extras. We came here to study, not to talk," Katsuki interrupts loudly. Hitoshi rolls his eyes but turns his focus to the work in front of him. God knows he needs all the practice he can get. As he attempts to concentrate, Hitoshi can hear Izu and Katsuki bickering in the background over a problem. He tries to remember what Pops had told him about the green bean from work, and the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes how many things line up. He also notices that the other 2 boys are extremely smart. They're already halfway through their subjects while Hitoshi is still just getting started on the first. He attempts to ask Izuku about a problem, but Katsuki disagrees with the answer that the green-haired boy comes up with. With a scowl, the blonde jabs a finger at Izuku. "You didn't even fucking graduate middle school. I know what I'm talking about. I actually used my break to study instead of going out and fighting six." He's cut off by a soft thud from under the table. Katsuki winces and returns to his work in silence. "You didn't graduate middle school." Hitoshi gives Izu a puzzled look, but the green-haired boy refuses to meet his gaze. Hitoshi just sighs and goes back to his work. Izuku watches as Hitoshi and Katsuki spar. They fight quirkless, so Izuku requested to battle the winner. So far, Hitoshi managed to capture Katsuki in the first round, using the scarf he got from his dad, while Katsuki pinned him in the second round. Izuku observes as Hitoshi lands a kick to Katsuki's side, resulting in a soft thud. The blonde winces but retaliates by grabbing his foot and yanking the purple-haired boy forward. Hitoshi stumbles, and Katsuki yanks him forward again, causing him to land on his hands and knees. In a swift motion, the blonde grabs an arm and twists it behind the other's back, eliciting a cry of pain. Okay, I'm out." You can let go now. Katsuki does, releasing him and taking a step back with a ruthless grin adorning his face. Izuku steps forward, smirking. Okay Kats, can I fight you now? Katsuki's grin falls from his face as the freckled boy steps into the makeshift ring. Katsuki doesn't want to fight Izuku. After fighting him for years, bullying him relentlessly, he doesn't want to inflict any more pain. Hesitating to step into the circle on the ground, a look of realization comes over the other's scarred face. Izuku offers a reassuring smile. You won't be able to hurt me, don't worry. At this, Katsuki tenses. Is he underestimating me? Mindfuck watches, puzzled, from the sidelines as Katsuki finally steps into the ring. As the fight commences, Katsuki finds himself being thrown backward instantly. He barely registered Izuku's movements before a kick landed squarely in his chest, propelling him out of the ring. Round 1 goes to Izu. Eye bags drawls, sounding smug. Izuku offers him a hand, but Katsuki slaps it away. He returns to the circle, preparing for the next attack. This time, the green-haired boy doesn't come at him with a kick. Instead, he throws jabs at Katsuki, striking him repeatedly. The blonde struggles to think amid the flurry of action, but he manages to swing his fist, connecting with Izuku's jaw. Katsuki's eyes widen. Oh shit, did I hurt him? But Izuku doesn't so much as wince. Instead, he smiles, the fucking psychopath. Izuku retaliates the punch, hitting Katsuki's face so hard that he instantly tastes blood. Before he knows it, he's on the ground with Izuku's knee pressing into his ribs and a forearm against his throat. Round 2 goes to Izu. Again, Katsuki growls, growing increasingly annoyed. He refuses to let that fucking pest beat him at this. But before he can even react, Izuku is already behind him. A swift kick to his leg causes Katsuki to stumble forward, landing harshly on his knees. Izuku wraps his arm around Katsuki's throat, and despite his struggles, the blonde can't break free. And just like that, the match is over. Round 3 goes to Izuku. No surprise there. Katsuki glares at mindfuck as he grins lazily back. Katsuki stands, unleashing a string of curses while Hitoshi laughs. Told you couldn't hurt me. Shut the fuck up, you fucking rat. I'll beat your ass next time. Izuku does not cower in fear. He does not flinch at the words or duck down in fear of being hit. No, he smirks. Sure you will. The next week and a half passes by in a blur. Izuku spends ample time sparring with his two friends, immersing himself in his studies as much as can. Surprisingly, Katsuki and Hitoshi get along well, Hitoshi letting the insults and attacks slide off him, unaffected. The only hiccups occur when Katsuki occasionally lets slip something that Hitoshi shouldn't know. He'll mention dying or fighting or patrol and Izuku will try and play them off as a joke, but the insomniac isn't dumb. Izuku can sense his growing suspicious, but by now, Hitoshi has learned not to push for answers. During the week, Izuku continues his nightly patrols, meeting with Eraserhead almost every time. The hero notices Izuku's elevated mood and carefree demeanor, to which Izuku simply smiles. He truly is happier than ever, and his fighting skills have improved as well, with him constantly winning battles with minimal injuries. With all the good that surrounds him, Izuku can only bring himself to kill himself twice over the week, once after a particularly grueling patrol and the other on the eve of the entrance exams. When he wakes up, Izuku can't help the bright smile that spreads across his face. Today is the day. As Izuku walks up to the grand entrance of UA, he can't help but feel awestruck by the sheer size of the school. There's so many people here. I can't find Katsuki or Hitoshi anywhere. As he scans the area, searching for a familiar face, Izuku ends up colliding with someone in front of him. Rubbing his nose, he begins to apologize, only to realize that he's floating a few feet in the air. His eyes go wide and the girl he ran into touches her fingers together. I'm so sorry. I must have activated my quirk by accident. Descending rapidly toward the ground, Izuku lands on his feet with ease. It's all right, no harm done, he reassures her with a warm smile. Her gaze shifts to his face, and her eyes widen, swiftly pushing down the fear that flashes in her eyes. The girl smiles back. Good luck on the exam. Let's do our best. He nods appreciatively and she walks off. She has a gravity-based quirk. It seems to be activated through touch. Entering the expansive school, Izuku quickly spots Hitoshi's distinctive lilac hair and takes a seat next to him. The boys listen attentively as President Mike explains the exam, detailing the robots and the various ways to earn points. Although Izuku is excited that Mike is a teacher here, he can't help but feel a bit wary due to their previous interactions. Izuku and Hitoshi part ways, both going to different testing grounds. After Mike's speech, the green-haired boy stands alone in the crowd of people, not sure what to do. He spots the girl he encountered earlier and contemplates whether he should approach her. Before he can make a move, however, a heavy hand lands on his shoulder. She seems to be concentrating. Are you here to sabotage people's chances at getting in? Is this all a game to you? Izuku stares up at the tall, boxy, blue-haired boy who pushes his glasses back as he speaks. Luckily, Mike's voice echoes through a radio, and so Izuku brushes off the boy's hand without responding. Alrighty listeners, remember your training and do your best. The test will start in 3, 2, 1, begin. Immediately, Izuku dashes forward and makes his way to the nearest rooftop. Though he managed to keep his staff and dulled knives, his other gadgets were prohibited in this exam. I need to figure out a plan if I want to make it out with enough points. The vigilante traverses the grounds, swiftly taking down multiple robots as he goes. He throws knives at their targets or gets up close enough to combat them with his staff. Observing the other contenders swiftly dispatching the robots, Izuku begins to worry that there might not be enough left for him. 3 minutes left, listeners. Go, go, go. Mike's voice rings out across the testing grounds. In the distance, Izuku spots a colossal robot making its way through the makeshift town, pushing past buildings as it goes. This must be the zero-pointer that Mike mentioned. Everyone's running away from it though. And they were. The kids all fled in the opposite direction, hoping to gain some extra points in the last few moments. Izuku is fully prepared to join the others in retreat, but something catches his eye. Under a fallen slab of concrete, directly in the path of the rampaging robot, the girl from earlier struggles to free her trapped leg. Izuku doesn't think. Without a moment's hesitation, he leaps across buildings, aiming to get as high up as possible. He scales a nearby structure and propels himself toward the robot's head. With all the might he can muster, Izuku swings his staff. The powerful blow resounds with a loud clang, and the robot goes down. At first, Izuku smiles in relief, pleased to have saved the girl. But then he starts to rapidly fall. Oh, I didn't plan my way down, fucking idiot. The school won't let me in if I die during the entrance exam. With a sigh, Izuku plummets toward the hard concrete. This feels familiar. Before he can collide with the ground, however, the sudden sensation of a hand striking his face interrupts his descent. Instantly, he finds himself floating in midair. It dawns on Izuku that the girl must have used her gravity quirk on him, if only momentarily. After coming to a stop, he falls the short distance to the ground and the girl promptly throws up. And that concludes the UA entrance exam. If you will make your way out of the testing grounds, you are free to leave. Izuku pushes himself up from the ground and scans the girl for any injuries. Are you alright? She wipes her mouth and looks up at him, panic still evident in her eyes. Am I alright? More like, are you alright? You almost died. Izuku shrugs, helping her to her feet, before swiftly making his way off the grounds, departing before she can ask any more questions. The following days are filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety for the three boys as they discuss the entrance exam and continue their training. But Izuku can't help but worry that he didn't do enough to secure his spot at UA. As a notification from the group chat pings, he decides that it counts as a good distraction from his worry. Fucking group chat. Insomniac. The results are in. Check or mail. Great explosion murder god. I already knew that bags. I don't need you to tell me. Green bean. OMG LMK your results. Unfortunately, Izuku had to use his old address on his UA forms, as listing his residence as an abandoned building didn't seem like the best idea. And so he jogs to his former house, retrieves the mail, and makes his way back home. After nearly 30 minutes, he finally has the chance to see if he got accepted. Despite the constant buzzing in his pocket, Izuku refrained from checking the group chat, wanting to see the results with his own eyes first. He rips open the letter and places the enclosed disc on the floor in front of him. As it touches the hard surface, the disc comes to life. A hologram of All Might stands in front of Izuku, who scowls at the sight. I am here, and I have the pleasure of teaching at UA for the next year. Lucky you, the hologram winks. Of fucking course All Might would be here the 1 year I decide to go to UA. You, despite having no quirk, have been accepted into UA. You passed the written exam with flying colors, and for the practical exam, well, let's look at the rankings, shall we? A scoreboard appears, and Izuku's eyes widen as he reads his own name sitting in the second place slot. After a shocked moment of happiness and pride, he searches the hologram for other familiar names, finding Katsuki in first place and Hitoshi in 10. Once the hologram finishes providing any other information needed about the school year, Izuku rushes to reply to the group chat. Fucking group chat. Great explosion murder god. Ha fucking losers, I got first place. Insomniac. Yeah whatever. Insomniac. Good job Blasty. Great explosion murder god. TF did you call me? Insomniac. What? You look like a fucking angry Pomeranian Elmao. Great explosion murder god. Don't even, you ugly ass bastard. Great explosion murder god. You look like you've never seen a hairbrush before and like you haven't slept in years. W those big ass eye bags. Insomniac. Lol. Green bean. We got in. I can't believe I got second place. OMG. Great explosion murder god. I got first though, loser. Green bean. Eck. Good job. Great explosion murder god. Shut up. Great explosion murder god. Did you see that All Might is going to be teaching this year? Insomniac. Yay, that should be super cool. I wonder what he'll teach. At that, Izuku sets his phone down, allowing the other two to nerd out over the heroes while he takes a moment to process his own emotions. Shouta is exhausted during his patrol tonight. Well, he's always tired, but tonight, it's even worse. Dealing with a bunch of teenagers for the first time in months and not being able to take a nap all day has drained him. Watching the practical exam was especially draining, to say the least. Nedzu had been commenting on anything that caught his interest, eventually focusing on a random green-haired boy. The principal was always disappointed when students ran away from the zero-pointer robot, wanting them to seize the chance to prove themselves. Yet this year, one student didn't flee. Instead, in a reckless attempt to save another contestant, a small boy threw himself straight at the robot's head, instantly taking it out. Later, Nedzu disclosed to Shouta that the kid was quirkless. Shouta despised the gleam in the creature's eyes. If that kid got in, the tired hero swore to himself that he would do everything in his power to ensure that Nedzu didn't get his damn paws on him. Drawing him out of his thoughts, Shouta receives a text from Tsukachi, informing him of the location of a villain that Nightfall had restrained. Shouta sighs. Why are there so many tonight? Making his way to the crime scene, he finds a burly man with a strength quirk. Although Shouta is surprised that Nightfall had managed to handle the villain on his own, he keeps his voice void of emotion. You are under arrest for attempted assault and attempted theft. The man simply stares at the hero with wide, fearful eyes. Is he gonna be there? Who? Shouta looks at the man, concerned and confused. The cloaked man. I think his name was Nightfall. Is he going to be there? The man's voice trembles slightly as he speaks. Shouta squints his eyes. No, as a vigilante, he doesn't work with the police or the heroes. What happened with Nightfall? He was terrifying. The whole time he was fighting with me. He wore this huge smile and was laughing maniacally. The criminal stops to take a shuddering breath before continuing. Even when I would hit him, he just kept laughing, as if he couldn't feel pain or something. He's fucking insane. Shouta just sighs and pushes the criminal into the police car. That wasn't the first report he's received tonight with similar claims. Many of the criminals, if they were still conscious, had been terrified of what they experienced and claimed that Nightfall was insane. After the sixth report, Shouta decided to find this young vigilante and get down to the bottom of this. Finding him is easy. Nightfall sits on the edge of a tall building, overlooking the city and swinging his legs carefreely, as if he's not perched on top of a 10-story building. When Shouta approaches him, the vigilante turns his gaze away from the sky and greets the hero with a smile. Hey, Eraser, he chirps. Shouta nods in greeting as the kid stands up. I've been hearing some interesting things about you tonight, Nightfall. The vigilante gasps in fake shock. Was it so bad that I was demoted from kid to Nightfall? Shouta just sighs. No, but you've traumatized the criminals. Nightfall shrugs and begins walking along the ledge, his arms outstretched to maintain balance. He tips toward one side, as if about to fall, and Shouta's heart skips a beat. But then, the kid effortlessly regains his balance and shoots the hero a teasing grin. That's the kind of smile you give after playing a harmless prank on someone, not when you pretend to almost fall off a building. Maybe he really is insane. The hero shakes the thought out of his head and the kid continues walking. I don't know how I traumatized them. I was in a good mood today. Why are you in a good mood? Shouta doubts Nightfall will fully answer his question, if at all, but he asks nonetheless. For a few moments, the vigilante continues to walk on the edge, head tilted back to gaze at the sky. Eventually, he sits back down, dangling a leg over the edge and propping the other one up. He smiles at the hero. Let's just say, I finally got into my dream school. And with that, Nightfall pushes himself off the ledge. Shouta rushes forward, peering over the side of the building, but the vigilante is nowhere to be seen. He sighs. At least he's happy. Izuku walks down the road toward his home, whistling happily with a spring in his step. As he opens the door, he retrieves a knife and expertly twirls it between his fingers. He's learned lots of impressive knife tricks over the months. Still whistling, Izuku runs the blade down his wrists, slicing through them easily with smooth, clean cuts as blood drips into the jar below. I need to save up some money for school supplies and tuition. I'll have to fight soon to make some extra money. Maybe tonight. Izuku stands firmly in the ring, fists raised and nose bleeding. A powerful blow to the head in a previous round has caused his vision to blur at the edges, but Izuku pushes through. His friends plan to go to the mall tomorrow and shop for school supplies. But Izuku had spent most of his money stocking up on supplies for his patrol, so he continues to fight. He watches his opponent intently, analyzing their movements in an attempt to predict their next strike. This will be his final fight for the night to avoid angering the workers with his extended presence. The man in the ring steps forward, swinging out his tail, but Izuku already anticipated the move. He jumps up to avoid the attack, then swiftly twists in the air, bringing down his leg. His kick connects harshly with the man's skull, and he instantly collapses to the ground. A grin spreads across Izuku's face as the crowd erupts in cheers, chanting his name. Verd. He revels in the adoration, feeling a sense of belonging in the midst of the chaos and applause. Why the hell do we need so much useless shit? Katsuki grumbles, scrolling through the extensive list sent from the school. Reluctantly, he had agreed to accompany Izuku and Hitoshi to the mall, and Izuku could tell he was already starting to regret it. Like, what's with all these damn notebooks? We're not all nerds like Izuku. The blonde growls, frustration evident. Hey, writing things down helps me retain information. Izuku retorts defensively. Yeah, sure, whatever you say, shitty nerd. Izuku quietly agrees with Katsuki's sentiment though. The list does seem excessive, containing way too many supplies, and the costs are adding up more than he anticipated. Before proceeding to the checkout, Izuku hastily calculates the prices, counting his remaining money. Thank God, I have just enough left to cover the last of the supplies. Bakugou raises an eyebrow in the green-haired boy. What? You don't make good money being a Vig? He clamps his mouth shut and Izuku can practically hear the internal curses. Being a what? Hitoshi interjects, giving the two a quizzical look. Being a freaking virgin, Katsuki tries to amend, but Shinsu looks unimpressed. Who says I'm a virgin? Izuku shoots Bakugou a glare as he approaches the cashier to check out. The Katsuki and Hitoshi exchange glances before promptly bursting out laughing. Hitoshi loses his grip on the notebooks, dropping them as he cackles loudly. Izuku scowls at their amusement, but they don't seem to care. Izuku likes to claim he's still a virgin. Those men didn't count. I was too young, so it doesn't count. Shaking his head, he hands the cash to the cashier and offers him a forced smile. The three boys proceed to the next store, ready to get the last of their supplies, when Katsuki spots an All Might-themed bag and holds it up to the others. Oi, rat. I found the perfect pencil bag for you, he says with a smirk, but the smile quickly fades when Izuku scowls at the blonde boy. He pushes past them, heading to grab the rest of his supplies from the back of the store. Concerned, Hitoshi and Katsuki follow him. You don't like All Might? Hitoshi asks, giving him a curious look. But he's always been your favorite growing up. Why don't you like him? He's fucking awesome, Katsuki probes further. Izuku sighs. I don't want to talk about it. He turns away from them, muttering under his breath, they always say never meet your heroes. You met All Might. Izuku curses Hitoshi's enhanced hearing. When? Did something happen? Izuku sighs again, gathering his supplies. Okay, fucking fine. I'll tell you if you'll drop it afterward. The others nod in agreement. On the last day of, the last time I was at your school, he nods toward Katsuki, whose eyes widen when in realization. Well, I was attacked by this sludge villain thing and All Might saved me. But then he tried to leave. And since I was still dizzy from losing consciousness, I grabbed onto him and suddenly we were flying. He didn't take you to the police or the hospital after the villain attacked. Hitoshi interrupts, concern evident on his face. I was attacked by that shitty villain too, but they took me to the hospital immediately. Katsuki adds, surprise in his voice. I didn't know you were attacked as well. But stop interrupting and let me finish, assholes. Izuku walks to another section of the store, searching for backpacks. When he realized I was holding onto him, he dropped me off on a nearby building. On the roof. Yes, Katsuki, on the roof. Shut up and let me talk, Jesus Christ. The blonde scowls but remains silent. He dropped me off on the roof and then I asked if I could be a hero like him. And he said no. He said that since I was quirkless, I would never be able to save anyone. For once, the boys don't interrupt, they simply stare at him in shock. Izuku sighs at the painful memory. I had been so excited to meet him, even after he dropped me off on the roof, but then he caused the first time I killed myself. This time, Izuku is the one to interrupt himself. He clamps his mouth shut, teeth clicking together audibly, before desperately attempting to rectify what he just revealed. I don't mean actually kill myself. I meant that I just thought about it because of everything. I didn't do anything. I just got kind of depressed. But I'm all better now. Nothing really happened since or anything. Really? Izuku continues to ramble, but neither Katsuki nor Hitoshi believe a word he says. Katsuki's face is as pale as a ghost, knowing that Izuku most likely jumped off that roof, just like he had told him to. Hitoshi had seen the scars on the freckled boy's wrists, knowing fully well they came from failed suicide attempts, so he dismisses Izuku's attempts to downplay the situation. Before the green-haired boy can continue with his feeble excuses, their conversation is interrupted by the cashier. OMG, Verd. Izuku freezes. Fuck. Despite his attempts to hide his identity, his hood and mask have fallen off or been yanked off multiple times during fights. So his secret hasn't been as well guarded as he hoped. But the universe must truly hate him, since he found himself face to face with a regular patron from the underground fighting ring. Last night's matches were wild. You must have made a fortune. Are you using your winnings to pay today? Izuku gulps, avoiding looking at his friends behind him. He quickly shoves a wad of cash to the cashier and offers a tense smile. As soon as he retrieves his change, Izuku grabs the bag of supplies and dashes from the store, as if he could escape his friend's prying questions. What the was that about? Fucking rat. Katsuki grabs the fleeing boy's shoulder, preventing him from escaping until Ibags catches up. Nothing. Just drop it, Izuku responds, his tone harsh and cold, but it does nothing to deter the angry blonde. Growling, Katsuki continues to hold on to Izuku as he attempts to pull away again. It wasn't fucking nothing. What was that? It doesn't have anything to do with you. Just let it go. Hitoshi steps forward, looking Izuku in the eyes. Izu, she said something about a match. What does that mean? The boy chews on his bottom lip, contemplating. Katsuki is about to press for an answer, but Mindfuck shoots him a glare. Who the fuck does he think he is, glaring at me like that? Pushing down his anger, the blonde redirects his attention back to Izuku. Okay, so, I used to fight in this underground ring thing for money, he begins, and Katsuki feels the anger creeping back up. But I don't go anymore. It was just a pastime when I was younger. It was harmless, really. Izuku waves his hands around, as if attempting to deflect their concern. But it doesn't work. She literally said that you fought yesterday and won a bunch of money. Hitoshi raises an eyebrow and Izuku curses under his breath, mumbling a string of flimsy excuses. Why do you even need extra money in the first place? Doesn't Auntie and Co make enough? I thought she's a nurse, Katsuki questions, not quite understanding. Izuku and Auntie and Co always had a nice home and enough food in the fridge. They might not have been as well off as his own family, but they were by no means poor. At the mention of his mother, Izuku's gaze suddenly turns distant, as if he's no longer there in the mall. Oi, rat! Katsuki snaps his fingers, attempting to regain the other's attention, but Izuku's gaze remains hazy and fixated on the floor. He looks at Hitoshi, who wears a concerned expression as well. The tired boy shrugs, before tentatively placing a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Startled, the green-haired boy jolts back to the present, his hands raised as to protect himself from a blow as he forcefully pulls away from Hitoshi's touch. Izuku blinks, and then gives the others a sheepish smile. I must be really tired, sorry. I think we should head home now. Katsuki glances at Mindfuck, who looks at him with the same knowing glance. Sure, my dad should be here any minute anyways, Hitoshi says, checking his phone. You guys want to come over to my place to hang out for a bit? Izuku shakes his head. Thank you, but I think I'm going to, organize my new stuff at home. Ibags shrugs. Suit yourself. Text me if you need anything. Katsuki watches as the purple hair disappears through the mall's exit before turning his attention back to Izuku. The smaller boy shrinks, slightly under his intense glare. I have to go organize my bag and study the schedule. No, I don't know why I didn't realize it before, but we're going to your house, Katsuki snaps, his determination unwavering. The scarred boy tries to reject the offer, providing a multitude of excuses, but Katsuki stands firm. Finally, Izuku gives in, with a defeated sigh. He begins to lead the way. Fine, I'll show you my place, it's not too far from here. But, you have to promise not to judge me or anything. Katsuki rolls his eyes but nods, following in silence. After a short while, Izuku stops in front of a collapsed building. No judgment, right? The blonde rolls his eyes again, but affirms the promise. Just take me the rest of the way, shitty rat. A look that Katsuki can't comprehend crosses Izuku's face as he begins to fiddle with his hands. We're here. What the fuck? The first thing that Izuku hears after the agonizing silence is Katsuki's swearing. He had reluctantly brought the blonde to his home, despite his apprehension. What the fuck happened to Auntie and Co? Does she live here too? Katsuki stares at the building in horror, concern and anger etched onto his face. Let's go inside first. Inside. It's about to collapse. Don't be dramatic, Kats. Let's just go inside, and then we can talk about everything. Izuku insists, making his way through the rubble, reaching his room with ease. Katsuki, on the other hand, stumbles and trips multiple times, growling and cursing with each misstep. Once they are both safely inside, Izuku sets down his bags and turns to face Katsuki, whose expression is filled with concern. He glares at the smaller boy. Explain. Izuku sighs, taking a seat on the dusty couch. I haven't seen my mom since I was 8. Hisashi left when I was almost 6 because he believed I wouldn't develop a quirk. He tried to make me gain one through force though. He constantly put me in life-threatening situations in an attempt to trigger one. He abused me for my whole childhood, but after I was diagnosed quirkless, it got so much worse. Izuku shudders at the memory, before continuing. After he left, Mom stopped taking care of me. She started treating me as if I didn't exist, neglecting me. When I was 8, she told me she was going to visit a friend for a week, but she never returned. She left me the house, but I couldn't afford the rent or anything at my age, the little money I made by. He pauses briefly. The little money I did make was used for food and school supplies. Besides, the house held too many painful memories. so I decided it was better to leave. I lived on the streets for about a year or so before finding this place. Katsuki stares at him in horrified silence for several minutes. He opens his mouth as if about to say something multiple times, but the words never materialize. Finally, he finds his voice. You should have stayed in the old house. It's so much safer there, idiot. His words lack their usual bite, even the insult sounding soft. Izuku offers a small smile. Maybe. A few moments of silence pass between them. Katsuki breaks it. When you mentioned the roof and All Might, did you actually do it? Katsuki doesn't meet his gaze, as if not wanting to hear the answer. Yes, but not because of what you said. I wasn't going to until All Might told me I couldn't be a hero. The blonde scowls at the thought of it, and silence envelopes them once again. And when you said that you weren't a virgin, was that? He trails off, not knowing how to phrase it, but Izuku understands what he's asking. He nods, and a pained look crosses Katsuki's face. When? His voice is barely a whisper. A few times, when I was younger though. I'm okay now, don't worry, Izuku reassures him, but Kat looks unconvinced. I'm so sorry. For everything. He buries his face in his hands. I always hated how your mom seemed so kind to you and mine wasn't like that, but I guess I never saw the whole picture. Or something. I'm sorry. Izuku smiles softly at the blonde. It's okay. I forgive you. Kat studies him for a moment. Can I stay the night? Izuku hesitates, unsure if it's a good idea. Well, I have patrol tonight. Would your parents care if you stayed over? Katsuki shakes his head. I don't care. I'm tired and I don't want to walk back to my place. Izuku lets out a sigh. Okay, fine. But you're sleeping on the couch. I'm keeping the bed. Shouta spots Nightfall perching on a nearby rooftop and sighs in relief. After taking down numerous villains today, he had been concerned about the young vigilante's well-being. Once again, Nightfall is overjoyed for whatever reason, whistling cheerfully as he smiles out at the city. What's got you in such a good mood? Shouta walks over to the kid, standing a few feet away. His smile widens as he continues to survey the cityscape. My school starts soon. My dream school. And what school would that be? Shouta asks, knowing he won't receive an answer, but asking nonetheless. Tisk tisk. Nightfall wags his finger playfully at the hero. Now that would be way too easy, wouldn't it? You can't win the game that way, Eraserhead. Game? What game? Shouta furrows his brow as he thinks, trying to make sense of the kid's cryptic words. Besides, most schools had already begun their academic year. Why is his only just starting now? Wait, could Nightfall be going to UA? Izuku returns home early in the morning, his bandaged stomach still oozing blood. He lets the door slam shut behind him but freezes when he notices the spiky blonde hair on the couch. Katsuki, who had been asleep moments earlier, sits up and rubs his eyes, still groggy with sleep. Wha? Is that blood? He mumbles as he squints at Izuku, his voice heavy with drowsiness. Blood? No, it's not blood. Go back to sleep, Izuku quickly responds. Don't tell me what to do, Katsuki grumbles, but lies back down and closes his eyes. Izuku lets out a sigh of relief. That was a close call. He stumbles over to his bed, grabbing a knife as he goes. The wound on his stomach is large and painful and Izuku would rather not deal with it for much longer. And so, with a quick slice of the wrists, Izuku is out. Izuku wakes up slowly, propping himself up on his elbows. Beside his bed sits a very concerned and very angry Bakugou. Izuku's eyes widen as he remembers that the blonde spent the night. Oh, good morning, Cats. I just woke up. He tries to put on a cheerful voice, but Katsuki just glowers at him. Yeah, from the fucking dead. Izuku winces at the loud noise, then lets out a sigh. Okay, calm down, I'm fine. Dying is like sleeping for me, but it also heals my wounds, so usually after patrol, I'll come back home and rest. It's not fucking rest, dipshit, it's death. I saw those jars of blood. Is it yours? Katsuki demands, gesturing toward the half-covered stash of containers in the corner of the room, and Izuku winces. Remember that underground fighting ring thing? They also have a market and I can trade my blood for money or supplies. It's really not that bad. Katsuki growls in frustration. That is bad. You're fucking hurting yourself over this shit. That's not healthy. That's not okay, he scolds. Irritation starts to rise in Izuku, and he glares back at the blonde. Don't think I haven't seen those burns under your shirt before. Don't lecture me when you can't even help yourself. Instantly, Izuku wishes he could take the words back. He winces at the hurt expression that flashes across Katsuki's face and looks away. Kat, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gone that far. The blonde huffs a sigh and stands. Shut up. Where are your scissors? Scissors? I'm giving you a haircut. It looks like a bird's nest up there. Izuku wants to be insulted, but he understands that this is how Katsuki shows he cares, so instead, he just smiles. I don't actually have scissors. I have a knife though. Will that work? Katsuki looks horrified. What the fuck? Get up. We're going to my house. Right now. Yes, idiot. Right now. Do I get a say in this? Katsuki scoffs. Of course not, rat. When they reach the Bakugou household, Izuku feels a surge of nervousness. As soon as Katsuki opens the door, yelling can be heard from inside. "You're finally back, Brett." Izuku watches as his friend tenses beside him and attempts to silently ascend the stairs. However, his mother emerges from the adjacent room and spots the two boys. She glares at Katsuki but blinks in surprise at the sight of the green-haired boy. "Izuku, is that you?" She crosses the room and cradles the boy's face in her hands. "I haven't seen you in so long." "Hi, Auntie Mitsuki," Izuku replies sheepishly. Her eyes well up with tears as she pulls him into a tight hug, causing Izuku to stiffen. "I had no idea where you were. I'm so glad you're okay." Katsuki, from a step above, rolls his eyes. "I'm giving him a haircut, hag. Let go already." Her demeanor instantly changes as she glares at her son. But before she can say anything, Katsuki grabs Izuku's arm and drags him up to his room. Once upstairs, Katsuki begins rummaging through his room, searching for the right supplies. "Boy, go take a shower. Your hair looks greasy as fuck." Izuku rolls his eyes at the comment but accepts the clothes Katsuki throws at him and heads to the bathroom. It's been years since Izuku had a proper shower, one not in public. He lets the hot water wash over his body as he scrubs the dirt and blood from his skin. The scalding water stings as it runs over his body, especially his burned scars, but he doesn't really mind the pain. After the shower, Izuku changes into fresh clothing and sits in the chair that Katsuki placed in the bathroom. His hair has grown long, the dark green strands reaching his shoulders. Katsuki cuts Izuku's hair in silence, working quickly and efficiently. Untangling the knots takes the most time, but the blonde works diligently without complaint, detangling his matted hair. Finally, the haircut is complete. Izuku's hair is much shorter than before, with the back and sides trimmed close while the top remains slightly longer. Katsuki styled it as well, skillfully using products that Izuku has never even heard of. His curls are more pronounced than he's ever seen them before, no longer weighed down by grease and grime. Izuku stares at himself in the mirror, awestruck. "Whoa, Kats, this is amazing. I fucking know. Don't underestimate me, rat." Katsuki shoves something into Izuku's hands. "This is a spray you can use after washing your hair. It'll help with your curls. And take these too, I have extra." By the time his hair is dry, Izuku has a box full of shampoo, conditioner, soap, and various other supplies that the homeless boy hasn't even seen in years. Katsuki tosses him a thin metal tool and Izuku catches it in the air, giving the blonde a curious glance. "Clean your nails. It's fucking disgusting how much dirt and blood you have under there." "Okay, why?" He begins to clean his nails. "School starts tomorrow, fuckwad. I'm painting mine and yours need to be cleaned," Katsuki informs him, siding on the floor across from Izuku, a container of black nail polish in hand. "Can I paint mine too? What other colors do you have?" Izuku asks, excitement evident in his voice. The blonde glowers at him but there's no anger in his voice as he speaks. "Fucking fine. I have a dark green shade you might like. Or red." Izuku beams. "I'll take green." After cleaning his nails, Izuku realizes that nail polish is much harder to apply than he had thought. After attempting to do a few nails, Katsuki sighs heavily. "This is literally painful to watch. Give me that shit." And so, the two of them sit in Kat's room, painting each other's nails in a comfortable silence. It's the perfect last day of break. The next day marks Izuku's first day of UA, his first step toward becoming a true hero. Izuku arrives to the school earlier than he would have liked, but with all his excitement, he had left patrol early and slept sooner than usual, hoping the next day would come quicker. Unfortunately for him, it only led to waking up a few hours before necessary. As he enters the class, several students are already seated. Izuku makes his way his seat behind Katsuki, who is currently being berated by the blue-haired boy from the entrance exam. "You're disrespecting the school property. Remove your feet immediately," the boy scolds, chopping his arms as he glares down at the spiky-haired boy. "Huh, don't tell me what to do, fucking extra." Sitting down with a sigh, Izuku suddenly finds the blue-haired boy turning his attention to him. "My name is Tenya Ida. I apologize for my rudeness during the exam. You realize there was more to the test than it seemed, and I misread you," the boy, Ida says, bowing deeply, and Izuku raises his eyebrows, taken aback. It's fine. I didn't realize there was another part. I just didn't want that girl to get hurt." As if on cue, the brown-haired girl pops up beside Ida. "You're here. I'm so glad you got in. My name's Ochako Uraraka." She beams brightly and Izuku can't help but smile back. "Izuku Midoriya, nice to meet you." She shakes his outstretched hand enthusiastically. "Nice to meet you too, Midoriya." He winces slightly. "Call me Izuku, please." She nods and continues to introduce herself to the other students, while Izuku glances behind him to where he earlier spotted Hitoshi sitting. The lilac hair is resting on his arms and Izuku smiles softly at the tired boy before making his way to Hitoshi's desk. "Wake up, dumbass. Class is about to start," Izuku says lightly, kicking the boy's chair. Hitoshi glares up at him. "I'm awake, asshole." I got here before any of you did. Why? Izuku starts, but he gets interrupted when Hitoshi's answer crawls out of a yellow sleeping bag. The students hurry to their seats, staring wide-eyed at the man standing in front of the class, their new teacher. Fuck, Eraserhead. The tired man glares at the class. It took you all 8 seconds to quiet down. You'll have to be faster than that if you want to be a hero. Izuku can't help but be amused. Despite Eraser's attempts to come across as cold and intimidating, the young vigilante has seen the hero be soft way too many times. I am your homeroom teacher, Shouta Aizawa. Put on your gym clothes and meet me on the PE grounds in 15 minutes. Don't be late. Uraraka shoots her hand in the air. What about the entrance ceremony? And we don't have time for those, the teacher interrupts. You're down to 14 minutes. The students jump from their seats, rushing to the lockers to change in time. Izuku attempts to hide his scars from the gaze of his classmates, changing quickly to avoid any unwanted question. Luckily for him, they're all too busy trying to get changed in time to notice anything. As a red-headed boy trips on his pants, face planting into the ground, people turn to laugh and Izuku pauses with his shirt off. He smiles at the commotion before feeling someone staring at him. As he glances around, quickly putting his shirt on, Izuku makes eye contact with a tall boy on the other side of the locker room. He has half red and white hair and a burn scar covering part of his face. His eyes are intense and cold as they glare at the green-haired boy. Izuku can't help but think of how pretty the other looks. As the class dashes to the field, Aizawa waits impatiently, holding a stopwatch. You all are 7 minutes late. You'll have to be faster than that in the future if you want to last at this school. Izuku, attempting to hide his own smile, spots Hitoshi doing the same. The teacher continues to talk. We are going to do a quirk apprehension test with 5 parts. Softball pitch, standing long jump, 50-meter dash, grip strength test, and sustained sideways jump. The class is silent as they take in the information, thoughts racing in everyone's mind. You should use your quirk as much as possible. You will all be ranked and the person with the lowest score will be expelled. At this, the class outbursts. You can't expel us on the first day. That doesn't seem fair. Is he even allowed to do that? Aizawa's hair raises above him threateningly, and the class falls silent. Bakugou, he suddenly calls out. How far could you pitch a softball in middle school? If surprised by the sudden question, he doesn't show it. 67 meters. Come to the circle. Try using your quirk this time. As long as you don't exit the circle, anything goes. Got it? Katsuki smirks, taking the ball from Aizawa. He stretches his arms out, taking a deep breath, and throws the ball with all his might. As the ball leaves his hand, Katsuki lets out a huge explosion, creating a shockwave that makes the students nearby take a step back as he yells, "Die!" A hush falls over the class before the teacher holds up the tracker. It reads 705.2 meters. Whoa, that's so far. Die. 750 meters is so long. That's so manly. The chorus of voices cut off as Aizawa calls the next student up to the circle. Hitoshi observes in silence as the students perform their softball pitches, trying to keep track of their names as they get called up. As some sparkly guy named Aoyama is called to the circle, Hitoshi gets the feeling that someone is watching him. He glances around, but sees nothing. When it persists, he turns around completely. Behind him, Hitoshi spots a boy with blonde hair and a black streak in it staring at him with wide eyes. Hitoshi shoots him a glare, before focusing on the trials again. After a few moments, the sensation of Sasomion's gaze on him returns. Once again, Hitoshi glances around before realizing the blonde is still staring at him. When he spots him, the shorter boy adverts his gaze quickly, but Hitoshi just glares. Stop fucking staring at me, he snaps, growing frustrated with the unwarranted attention. With a sigh, he once again returns his attention to the softball pitch. A taller person named Kota goes up to the circle, but the eyes return, and he can feel the boy's gaze on him once more. He's had enough. Turning on his heel, Hitoshi glares down at the boy. What the fuck is your problem? Why are you staring? The blonde's eyes widen, a pink flush making its way up his cheeks, most likely out of embarrassment at being caught. What? I said stop staring, Hitoshi reiterates, his glare unwavering. The boy lowers his head, but Hitoshi keeps his gaze on him a moment longer. After a moment, the blonde looks back up, his golden eyes locking with Hitoshi's narrowed ones. The boy takes a startled step back, but Hitoshi closes the distance quickly. What do you want? Do you want to fight? Hitoshi growls, his frustration getting the better of him. Fight? No. He waves his hands around wildly before pausing. Do you want to fight? This isn't said threateningly, but as if he's genuinely curious. Hitoshi just glares at him. This kid is trying to pick a fight with him. He doesn't even know Hitoshi's quirk. The taller boy knows he could win easily against this talkative kid. You don't want to fight me, I could make you do anything I want. Once again, the blonde's eyes widen, his face somehow growing more red. Yeah, he laughs nervously. You totally could. Before Hitoshi can ask what that means or dwell on the strange behavior of the other, he hears his name being called for his turn. He quickly makes his way to the circle and his dad, Aizawa, hands him the ball. Anything goes, he questions, raising an eyebrow at the teacher. As long as you stay in the circle, he confirms. Grinning mischievously, Hitoshi decides to test these boundaries. Hey, gravity girl, he calls out. What was your name again? Uraka or something? Huh, oh, it's Uraka. Got her. The girl's face goes slack, eyes hazy. Come here and make the ball float, he commands. She obliges easily. With a simple toss, the ball soars into the air. Aizawa holds up the tracker, the screen holding an infinity sign. A chorus of voices erupt from the class. How come he could get help from someone else? That's not fair. That was so hot. The teacher's hair rises again, silencing the students with a glare. If you didn't catch what happened, then you need to pay better attention next time. What he did was perfectly within the rules. The class mumbles to themselves as Hitoshi joins Katsuki and a few others on the other side. His encounter with the strange blonde boy still lingering in his mind. Izuku Midoriya. When Izuku is called up to pitch, he already has a plan. Taking a deep breath, he enters the circle, clutching his staff. Aizawa had allowed him to use it in the trials, though unfortunately his knives weren't permitted. Holding the ball, Izuku tosses it lightly in his hands. Then, in a swift motion, he throws it up in the air and swings his staff. It connects with the ball, sending it soaring into the air. Izuku can't help but smile when he sees his score, 815 meters. Katsuki scowls back at him as he stands by the blonde's side, while Hitoshi simply offers him a lazy smile. The rest of the test proceeds quickly, and Izuku likes to think he did fairly well. As the students line up to get their results, he isn't nervous. Aizawa pulls up the chart and gives the class a wide, crazy-looking smile. By the way, the whole expulsion thing was a lie. Nobody's getting expelled. This time, when the class erupts with outrage, the teacher doesn't attempt to calm them down. Ignoring their shouts, Izuku examines the chart and finds himself in 4th place, just below Katsuki. Izuku smiles to himself. I really can be a hero after all. Walking back to class, he ignores the comments about his quirk. Overhearing people discussing whether it's a speed or agility quirk, some even seem to think it's a strength quirk. Izuku simply smiles, knowing it's none of those. I'll show everyone that a quirkless person can be a hero too. As the students sit in English class, Izuku begins to get a weird, ominous feeling, like a foreboding presence. He knows Present Mike hasn't stopped stealing glances at him throughout the class, but this feeling is different, more troubling. Hitoshi informed Izuku the previous day that Present Mike was actually his other dad, and the green-haired boy could barely focus the rest of the day due to the shock of the pure coincidence of having met with all of the family before school. As the bell rings, the classroom door slams open. I am here. Izuku scowls, sinking deeper into his seat as All Might enters the room. Now, instead of Mike, he can feel Hitoshi's gaze on him from the back of the room. I will be your foundational hero studies teacher. Let's jump right in with the trial of battle. The tall man speaks, his tone loud and cheerful. Izuku hates it. Get your gear and meet me at ground beta. The hero begins to walk out the door when someone speaks up. All Might Sensei. A tall girl with a ponytail raises her hand. We haven't gotten our hero outfits yet. Oh, All Might pauses. That's right. My mistake. Here we go. He presses a button on the side of the room, and the wall panels open, revealing briefcases with the students' numbers on them. Despite his bad mood, Izuku can't help but scoff at the man's oversight. And from the sound of his reaction, Katsuki feels the same. In the changing room, Izuku gazes down at the set of clothing. A black lightweight tactical jacket with a slightly loose fit, crafted from fireproof material for protection and flexibility. Dark green accent adorn the jacket along with the trim, providing a subtle yet distinctive touch. Beneath the jacket, there is a fitted tank top cropped to his stomach, matching the dark green color of the accents. His baggy cargo pants come equipped with multiple pockets for storing tools and gadgets. Additionally, there is a utility belt that sits around his waist, featuring specialized sheaths for his knives and compartments for items like lock-picking tools, smoke pellets, and communication devices. Fingerless gloves that cover his forearms sit on top of the rest of his clothing, able to enhance his grip and protect his knuckle. Izuku hopes that this won't give away his identity as Nightfall, believing he made enough changes for it to be alright. He still carries throwing knives, dulled down for in-school practices, along with an extendable bow staff. He has only used it a few times, but he resolves to perfect it soon. Izuku smiles to himself as he undresses from his school uniform. As he pulls his new pants completely up, he suddenly hears gasps behind him. He turns around, hoping to figure out what happened, but he quickly realizes that his classmates were gasping at the sight of him. Oh, my scars. I forgot. Quickly, Izuku turns back around, pulling on his shirt and jacket. He tries to finish changing into his gear in peace, but unfortunately, he doesn't get the chance. Dude, what happened? The redhead asks. Izuku thinks his name was Kirishima. Are you okay? Those look painful. Someone else chimes in, but Izuku doesn't bother to check who. Before he can figure out what to say, Katsuki steps in front of him. What the fuck are you extras looking at? Get changed and fucking leave. The ashen blonde boy stomps out of the lockers and Izuku quickly follows suit. As he exits, he can hear Ida's scolding tone. Although I don't approve of that language, Bakugou is correct. It is insensitive to ask about such personal things. With a sigh, Izuku waits for the rest of his classmates to join him on ground beta. Once they arrive, he watches All Might with a glare while the man explains the simulation, a battle against heroes and villains. When the teacher gets to the point of choosing groups, All Might looks nervously back at Izuku. Young Midoriya, he begins. You will be sitting out from participating in this simulation. Katsuki has only seen Izuku angry a few times in his life, and whenever it happens, he knows to stay away. Young Midoriya, you will be sitting out from participating in this simulation. All Might practically signed his death certificate. Because when Katsuki looks over at Izuku, the boy isn't angry, no. He's livid. And why is that, All Might? Izuku asks through gritted teeth, his glare burning holes in the larger hero. Well, he looks around nervously. We really should discuss this in private, my boy. I'm not your boy. We can discuss it here, Izuku snaps back. Katsuki can hear the students around him begin to mumble, talking in what they think are hushed tones. All Might glances around at the other students. Are you sure that's? Is it because I'm quirkless? At this, the whole class falls silent, watching Izuku wordlessly. Well, yes, I don't want you to get hurt, young Midoriya. The class erupts into whispers again. Quirkless? Is he really? I could have sworn he had an agility quirk, or at least a speed one. Why can't he fight because of that? It's not really All Might's place to decide. Wow, he got into UA. Quirkless? That's so manly. Izuku's words cut through the mutterings. I can take care of myself. I'm fighting. I got into UA. On my own account. You can't stop me from fighting because of your bigoted beliefs. All Might pales and several students gasp. Katsuki sighs before elbowing the green-haired boy in the ribs. Oi, shut up. You can fight, so back off. Izuku glares at him for a moment before stepping back. All Might clears his throat. Okay, let's choose the teams now, shall we? Izuku found himself facing Todoroki and Ida for the battle trials, with Uraraka on his team. All Might allows the villain team to set up their defenses first while giving the heroes time to plan their strategy. I think Ida's going to stay and defend the weapon while Todoroki will most likely be patrolling to prevent us from reaching the top, which is where I assume Ida will be waiting, Izuku strategizes. Uraraka nods, listening intently. I can take on Todoroki. You should try to sneak to the top without Ida noticing. Do you think you can do that? She hesitates for a second before nodding again. Do you need help with Todoroki, though? He has a super powerful quirk. No, he assures her, sounding more confident than he feels. I can take him. Uraraka doesn't look at him with pity or disbelief. Instead, she smiles. Let's do our best then, Izuku. The scarred boy returns the smile, happy that she isn't underestimating him due to his quirkless status. Finally, the timer goes off and the fight begins. The two partners silently enter the building, nodding at each other before parting ways. Izuku heads up the stairway, listening intently for any sound of footsteps. After months of patrolling, Izuku trained his hearing and other senses to be much more sensitive to motion and noise. So when he reaches the third level, he knows he's found Todoroki. Taking out his bow staff, Izuku peeks around the corner, and alas, there the red and white boy stands in all his beauty. Izuku creeps around the walls, staying hidden in the shadows, ready to attack. When Todoroki's back is turned, Izuku lunges forward, swinging his staff at the back of Todoroki's legs. The boy falls to his knees. In his surprise, he lets out a stream of ice, which covers the floor, creeping up Izuku's legs and securing him to the ground. Todoroki catches his breath, standing and stepping back, but Izuku doesn't give him much time. In an instant, he slams the staff into the ice near his feet, the cracks spreading across the blue surface, and uses all his body's strength to pull himself from the icy embrace. Before Todoroki can react, Izuku dashes forward and lands a roundhouse kick on the boy's side, throwing him sideways into a wall. Not giving him a chance to recover, Izuku quickly reaches him again, turning him on his back and pressing his face into the ground. Ice creeps up Izuku's hands as he binds Todoroki's, but he pays it no mind. Todoroki has been captured. All Might's voice echoes through the training building, a hint of disbelief in the words. Below him, the boy watches Izuku with wide eyes, shocked. Izuku just stands back up, brushing the dirt from his clothes with a smirk. Good fight, Todoroki. The green-haired boy walks away before he can notice the slight flush creeping up Todoroki's face. Before Izuku can reach the top level of the building, All Might's voice resonates again. The heroes have won the first battle. Good job, everyone. Please exit the building and return to the group. Izuku runs into Uraraka before he can completely exit the building. Good job taking out Todoroki, Izuku. She smiles brightly and high-fives him. He smiles back. Thanks, good job taking care of Ida, you did good. The group returns to the monitoring area with the rest of the class. Well done, students. All of you did a good job, though there's always room for improvement. Does anyone know where some things went wrong? The tall ponytail girl raises her hand immediately. The heroes, Izuku and Uraraka, both did everything well, but the villains made a couple mistakes. The group separated instead of staying together, and Todoroki wasn't aware of his surroundings, standing out in the open, which allowed Izuku to have the advantage of surprise. Ida left his post after Todoroki got captured, which allowed Uraraka to capture the weapon. There's a beat of silence before the teacher speaks again. Well said, young Yaoyorozu. I couldn't have put it better myself. Let's choose the next teams, shall we? Izuku listens intently as he traverses the rooftops. He heard a crash from this direction, but isn't completely sure where it came from. When he gets closer, landing on top of a convenience store, Izuku checks the alleyways around the area but finds nothing. As he begins to leave to search elsewhere, he hears another sound, coming from below him. He jumps from the roof, landing in a crouch as he peers through the front window. Sure enough, a burglar stands, holding a gun and a bag. Izuku contemplates the best course of action. But in the end, the only thing he can come up with most likely isn't a good idea, yet he follows through nonetheless. As the criminal takes a step toward the cashier, Izuku crashes through the window, throwing himself between the villain and the poor old man up front. A shot rings out, but Izuku doesn't hesitate. He kicks the gun from the man's grip in a swift motion, and the criminal freezes. Izuku takes this chance to punch him squarely in the jaw, and with that, he falls unconscious, body dropping to the floor. Izuku quickly binds the criminal's hands, shooting a text to the detective before checking to make sure the cashier is uninjured. The man stands shakily, staring wide-eyed. Thank you, you saved me. Izuku simply nods. I've seen you on the news. You're Nightfall, aren't you? The news. What does he mean? Again, he nods. With a last searching glance, Izuku deems the man unharmed and promptly leaves. As the adrenaline wears off, Izuku can feel a stinging pain in his shoulder, but before he can check to see why, he senses Eraserhead's presence behind him. Nightfall, I heard you stopped a robbery. Are you hurt? The voice is low and steady, and Izuku turns toward the man. Nope, all good here, Izuku replies with a smile, but the hero's face only becomes more worried. No, you're not. You're bleeding, kid. Bleeding. Izuku reaches a hand to his aching shoulder. When he pulls it away, it's coated in blood. Oh, that's where the bullet went, I guess. Eraserhead just stares. It's all right. I just need to patch it up later. I have school in the morning, so I need to get home. It was nice seeing you though, Eraser. As Izuku scales a nearby building, lifting himself onto the roof, he can hear the hero's voice from behind him. You're going to school still. You just got shot. Izuku doesn't respond. He has to get home before he bleeds out. You need to choose your class representatives today. I don't care who wins, I'll be taking a nap. Shouta crawls into his yellow sleeping bag, zipping it up. Can we do an anonymous poll? Ida asks, hand in the air. Do what you want. Just have them picked by the end of the class. Inside his sleeping bag, Shouta doesn't nap as he claims he does. Instead, he takes these opportunities to observe how the class interacts with each other when they think nobody is watching. After a few days of school, he already picked up on many things. He noticed how Tsuyu watched her classmates constantly, usually staying silent, as if trying to understand the other kids. He noticed how Bakugou, despite how loud and rude he comes across, would constantly glance at Midoriya and a few other students, noticing when they were tense or upset. He noticed how Mina would instantly jump from her seat and walk to other students' desks. He noticed how Kaminari seemed incapable of sitting still for more than a few seconds. He noticed how Todoroki would flinch at sudden noises or movements. He noticed how Midoriya's eyes would scan the room as he entered, as if checking for threats and exit routes. Midoriya was a very interesting student to observe. Something seemed off about him. He constantly seemed on edge, his body never relaxing. He seemed to force the smile onto his face when others looked at him. But Shouta noticed that when all the eyes were focused elsewhere, the smile would drop, his eyes shifting around the room once more. After counting the votes, Midoriya had the most, which didn't come across as a surprise to the teacher, though it did to Midoriya himself. Yaoyorozu was voted as vice president, which Shouta thought fit. She's a very put-together young lady, although it slightly worried him how she seemed incapable of being relaxed or of having fun like most other teens. He climbs from the yellow bag and gives the class a lazy stare. What was your decision? He can see Hitoshi smile at this. His son has heard about his observation habits already. Midoriya is the president and Yaoyorozu is vice president, Aizawa-sensei. Ada reports, stiffly. Despite his even tone, Shouta can tell the boy is disappointed that he didn't receive the position. Izuku isn't sure where to sit when he arrives at lunch, but Uraraka bounds over to a table with her tray of food and beckons him over. Ada joins shortly after, and Hitoshi slides into the seat next to Izuku. The group sits in an uncomfortable silence for a moment, before Uraraka speaks up. "I can't believe you got class president, Izuku." He has to keep down the grimace that threatens to rise to the surface. "Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm good for that job though. I'm not the most organized person." "Nonsense. You got voted because the class deemed you fit," Ada announces loudly. "I, myself, voted for you as well. I believe you have a way of directing a room." Before Izuku can respond, Hitoshi snorts beside him. "Did you see Katsuki's face though? He was pissed." Izuku laughs at this, nodding. "Kat's always wanted to be class president in middle school. He must have been mad that I beat him to it." "Who's Kat's?" Uraraka asks, tilting her head. She was eating so fast a moment before that she still has a piece of rice on the corner of her mouth. "Bakugou, the blonde angry guy." Uraraka and Ida's eyes widen in shock. "You're that close with him? He's so scary." Hitoshi raises his eyebrows. "Some people would say me and Izu are scary too." Nobody says anything. Suddenly, Izuku gets a shiver down his back and he's instantly on high alert. Hitoshi glances at him, curious. But Izuku doesn't pay him any mind. He tries to drown out the noise of the lunchroom, heightening his senses to try and catch anything off. His intuition is telling him it's coming from the floor below, and Izuku has learned to trust his gut feeling. It's never led him astray before. He stands and the whole table glances at him. "I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be right back." "Okay, make sure to grab some food when you return." Uraraka must have noticed that he wasn't eating lunch, but those cost money and Izuku doesn't have much to spare at the moment. As he makes his way downstairs, suddenly the alarms begin to blare overhead. He winces at the sudden loud noise but spots a suspicious figure moving through the empty halls, sneaking into a restricted room. He follows the man, slipping into the room before the door clicks closed. The man in question doesn't look old, but has light blue hair with hands covering his face and arms. Izuku doesn't want to think about where he got them from. Hiding in the shadows of the dark room, he watches the man go through the files in the desk. When he grabs one out, Izuku decides to step from the shadows. The man startles slightly, and Izuku grabs onto one of the many hidden knives he has on him. The villain's gaze drops to the knife and his eyes narrow. He removes his glove and takes a menacing step forward. Izuku doesn't waver under the man's stare. Instead he grins, taking a matching step forward. The villain reaches out a hand, but before he can make any contact, a voice comes from the back wall. "Shigaraki, we did not come here to pick a fight. If you got it, then it's time to leave," the voice says, low and scolding. The man huffs a sigh before walking toward the back wall. "Until we meet again, player 2. If Izuku knew there was a portal, he would have attempted to stop the man for leaving, but he doesn't realize it until the man is halfway gone already. With a sigh, Izuku returns to the classroom. When he arrives, opening the door with a little too much force, the class stops and looks at him. Katsuki glares from his seat, small explosions going off in his hand. "Where the fuck were you, rat?" But as soon as he says this, he winces and reaches a hand up to his ear. Izuku wonders if the alarms messed with his hearing aids. "Language, Bakugou," Aizawa reprimands. "But that is a good question. Where were you, Midoriya?" "Oh, well, I was going to go use the bathroom, but I noticed a strange figure lurking around, so I decided to follow him." "And why didn't you inform a staff member about this?" "I thought it would be too late, so I just followed the guy. He took something from the files room and left through this portal thing. His name was Shigaraki or something, I believe." The class just stares at him, their faces full of awe and fear. "Talk to me after class, Midoriya." Izuku sighs, walking to his seat. "Yes, sensei. And put that knife away while you're at it. Students are not supposed to have weapons when not training." Izuku blinks down at the dagger he still holds in his hand, eyes widening in embarrassment. He quickly sheathes it in the hidden holder he created on the inside of his jacket, earning an unamused eyebrow raise from Aizawa. As the class goes on, Izuku learns that Ada had stopped the panic of the alarm earlier, and in an attempt to get out of president duty, he nominates Ada instead, and the class agrees after a little convincing. The class ends quickly, and despite Izuku's attempts at sneaking through the door in the crowd, Aizawa spots him and drags him back into the classroom. "Fuck, so much for not drawing too much attention to myself." Shouta stares at the young boy in front of him. He looks anxious, fiddling with his hands and picking at his nails, yet his eyes hold a determined, stubborn look. "Midoriya, I received the footage of the room from Principal Nedzu. There's only one angle. The trespassers were able to take out 4 of the cameras, but didn't catch the last one. How about we watch it together?" Midoriya gulps but nods. He pulls up the footage sent from the principal. The room is dark, but Shouta watches as the door quietly swings open, a young man stepping inside. Before the door can fully close, a figure slips through, hiding in the shadows. If Shouta hadn't known beforehand that the figure was Midoriya, He would have assumed it to be a professional stealth hero of some sort, or someone with a stealth or camouflage quirk at the very least. The student and teacher watch in silence as the villain fingers through the files, eventually pulling one out. When he does, the figure from the shadows steps forward, and Shouta internally sighs. The figure has a knife in hand, and the villain removes a glove, stepping forward. Shouta can't be sure, but in the footage it looks almost as if Midoriya is grinning. That can't be right. Any student would be terrified in this situation. The figures exchange words briefly before the villain walks through a portal in the wall. Shouta closes the computer and looks at Midoriya, who attempts to avoid the intent gaze at all possible cost. Why did you follow him into the room? His voice comes out cold. I was on the way to the bathroom on the bottom floor. He interrupts. You were at lunch before I thought. Why, yes, and when I saw him, I thought that he might be dangerous, so I followed him. Shouta's eyes scrutinize the boy's face. Something isn't right. It's not that he doesn't believe what the kid says about the villain, but something about his demeanor seems off. Midoriya, he says, hoping to get something out of the guarded boy. Tell me the truth. The boy's green eyes anxiously search the older man's face, and Shouta tries to push down all emotion that could be showing. In an instant, the energy around them shifts. The stuttering, anxious boy from before is long gone, and in his place sits the real Midoriya. I guess you would notice something was off, wouldn't you, Eraser? He says this under his breath, but Shouta catches it. Something about this scarred boy seems so very familiar, but he can't pinpoint what. Near the beginning of lunch, at 12:52, I felt like something was wrong, so I went to investigate and ended up on the first floor. Midoriya speaks with confidence that wasn't there before, his voice sturdy and eyes staring deeply into Shouta's. I noticed a figure sneaking into the room, and so I followed. He was looking for a file. I'm not sure which one, but when he found it, I confronted him, but we were interrupted by a voice from the portal, calling him Shigaraki and saying that they need to leave for now. It sounded as if they were planning on returning, though. Shigaraki was about 175 centimeters and probably in his early 22nd. He seems to have a touch-based emitter quirk as well. Shouta can only stare in shock as this kid rattles off facts and information. He'd only been in the room with the villain for a few minutes. How does he know all this? After a pause, Shouta gets his expression under control. Anything else? The kid shakes his head. I will report the information to Netsu later. Now, why do you have a knife on you, Midoriya? The kid doesn't begin to stutter or look away. His gaze stays locked on the teacher and his voice remains calm and nonchalant. I have multiple hidden knives on me in case of a villain attack or in case I need them. Shouta raises his eyebrows at this. UA is one of the most protected schools in Japan. Why do you feel the need to protect yourself? There was a break-in today, was there not, Aizawa-sensei? Shouta blinks. This little shit. How many knives do you have on you currently? The kid hesitates for a brief moment before answering. 5. Shouta raises an eyebrow. 10. The kid amends. The teacher can only sigh. I still feel like you're not being honest, but I won't press. If you ever use them on a student or teacher, I will have to remove all of them. Permanently. The kid simply nods. Go to your next class, kid. Midoriya hurries out of the room, leaving Shouta alone with his confusing thoughts. Why does he seem so familiar? Why does he feel the need to protect himself here? Why does he put on that mask, pretending to be anxious all the time? Shouta lets out a heavy sigh. He gets the feeling that he'll understand soon enough. Izuku has 23 knives on him at all times. The night after he was accepted into UA, he modified his uniform, adding many secret compartments to store his weapons. His belt can hold up to 6 knives in sewn-on sheath. His jacket has a few hidden inner pockets, each capable of carrying 3 throwing knives. Additionally, ankle holsters allow him to carry 4 small daggers, and under each sleeve, there are 2 thin daggers attached to his forearms, held there by wristbands for easy access and comfortability. Of course, Izuku would never tell anyone, especially not his teacher, how many he has concealed, since that would ruin the whole secret thing. He doesn't realize how handy these knives will be until he enters the USJ grounds. As Izuku steps into the grounds for what was supposed to be rescue training, a sudden cold chill runs down his spine. He glances around the open grounds, his keen eyes searching for anything out of the ordinary. In the center of the arena, a peculiar purple mass appears, slowly growing larger, hastily interrupting 13. Who had been in the middle of explaining the class plans. Izuku rushes forward and calls out to his teacher, Aizawa-sensei, something's here. The teacher instantly tenses, scanning the grounds for whatever Izuku spotted. The green-haired boy quickly grabs a knife from the hidden compartment in his jacket and throws it toward the growing purple anomaly, which the bigger it gets, the more it resembles the portal from the previous day. As it expands, several villains spill out onto the training grounds, led by none other than the man from before, Shigaraki. The knife flies through the air, hitting a villain in the shoulder as confusion and panic sweeps through the students. What is that? Is this part of the training? Kirishima calls out amidst the commotion. Don't move. Eraserhead wastes no time. He slides his goggles on and steps in front of his students. Those are villains. All of you, get out of here immediately. 13 and I will handle them. Izuku knows the two heroes cannot handle the overwhelming number of villains alone. Yet Aizawa immediately throws himself into battle, sacrificing his own well-being for the safety of his students. The rest of the class stands frozen, unsure of what to do, but Izuku doesn't hesitate. He has enough experience with fighting that he's left unfazed by the chaos. Seeing that nobody is moving, Izuku turns to face his classmates, his voice firm. What are you doing? Go, Ada, you're the fastest. Go get help immediately. Ada snapped out of his daze, giving a curt nod before dashing out the doors. But as the other classmates try to follow, the purple void spreads in front of the exit, blocking their escape. I'm afraid I can't allow that. A low voice emanates from the void. In an instant, Kirishima and Katsuki spring into action, explosions and fists at the ready. But before their attacks can land, the void spreads under the students, and everything goes black. Moments later, as light reaches Izuku's eyes again, he finds himself on a ship in the middle of the flood zone. Hitoshi and Asui are on the ship as well, fear evident in their wide eyes. After shaking off the dizziness, Izuku begins to form a plan in his mind. Hitoshi, Asui, are you all right? Call me Tsuyu. The frog girl corrects with a nod. Hitoshi nods as well, confirming his well-being. Okay, good. Hitoshi, I need you to call out to the villains in the water. They're waiting for us to react since they don't know our quirks yet. Asui, Tsuyu. After the chaos settles in from Hitoshi, I need you to use your jumping strength to bring us to land. You can carry us, right? The two nod again before getting straight to work. Hey, boneheads, Hitoshi shouts, taunting the villains in the water. You want to come up and fight us like real men, or stay down in the water like the cowards you are? Instantly, the villains yell out in outrage. Perfect. About half the villains respond, and Hitoshi continues with a grin. Attack the closest villain to you. The men in the water break out into fights, but the trio doesn't stay to watch the chaos unfold. Tsuyu skillfully wraps her tongue around Hitoshi's midsection and grabs onto Izuku with her arms. She leaps into the air, with the help of Izuku's jumping strength, and they land safely on the edge of the central plaza. Once on solid ground again, Izuku assesses the scene that unfolds around him. Aizawa is fighting against a multitude of villains. Many are already incapacitated, but the teacher appears injured. Without a moment's hesitation, Izuku rushes into battle, ignoring the cries from Hitoshi and Tsuyu. The villains are much weaker than ones Izuku has fought before, so within the first couple of minutes, he takes down many. A quick punch to the face, a hit with his bow staff, an axe kick to the head, and they fall like flies. When his teacher notices that Izuku joined the fight, he looks livid. Midoriya, I told you all to evacuate. You can't fight them by yourself, sensei. Let me help. Before Aizawa can yell at him more, Shigaraki charges toward him. The hero deftly dodges the initial attack, throwing his elbow out at the villain, but Shigaraki manages to catch his jab, resulting in a horrifying sight. Izuku hears Eraserhead make a strangled, pained noise, and watches in horror as the skin on his elbow disintegrates, crumbling into pieces before his eyes. With adrenaline, or maybe it's fear, coursing through his veins, Izuku swiftly grabs and throws a knife, hitting Shigaraki's arm and eliciting a cry of pain from the villain. He yanks his hand back from Eraserhead and glares at the green-haired boy. Well, looks like player 2 has joined the fight. Izuku doesn't take the time to figure out what this means. Instead, he positions himself between Aizawa and Shigaraki, determined to protect his teacher at all costs. The villain watches him with wild eyes. He charges forward, but Izuku evades his outreached hand, instead grabbing Shigaraki's wrist and yanking him forward while simultaneously twisting on his heel and dealing a powerful kick to the villain's back. Shigaraki growls in frustration, and the two begin to fight again. Their intense duel continues, with every dodge from Izuku and every blow he lands fueling Shigaraki's growing rage and frustration. Finally, Izuku lands a punch on Shigaraki's face, causing the hand that covers half his face to fall off. The villain looks livid. Seething with anger, he takes a step back, glaring at the defiant green-haired boy. Time for the main show, he growls. Namu, kill Eraserhead. Izuku watches in slow motion as a monstrous, deformed creature emerges the portal. In an instant, it's shoving Aizawa to the ground. Izuku hears a sickening crunch as the creature twists his teacher's already injured arm, but the screams are what make him freeze in his spot. After a split second, Izuku realizes he can't just stand idly by and watch. He has to do something. He has to save his teacher. Izuku dashes toward the Namu, using his knives to scale the creature's back. It doesn't react as the metal pierces his rough skin, and Izuku continues to the top. His brain is exposed. That has to be its weakness. Izuku hears another crunch of bones from below the Namu and feels sick to his stomach. He reaches the creature's head in an instant, not having time to think it completely through. He retrieves the long, thin daggers from their hiding spot and begins to viciously stab the exposed brain. Izuku doesn't think about the blood that splatters onto his face. He doesn't think of the sickening squelches from where metal meets brain. All he can think about is his teacher, about how he has to save him. Izuku stabs the knives relentlessly with all his strength, hoping, praying, that it will have some effect. As his hands and shirt become coated in blood and bits of brain, the Namu finally loosens his grip, stumbling forward. Izuku continues, wanting to inflict as much pain as he can. Shigaraki watches in horror as his precious Namu falls forward, collapsing to the ground. Namu, stand up, kill the boy. Kill Arasirhead. Kill everyone. But despite his desperate, childish screams, the Namu remains unresponsive on the ground. The purple void appears behind the villain, speaking in a low but firm voice. Shigaraki, we need to leave. The symbol of peace isn't here, and Namu is. Not responding. But the villain screams in anger, refusing to listen to reason. He charges forward, aiming for Izuku and thirsting for revenge. I quote, I'll kill you. Izuku can feel the grin splitting his face, not caring to cover it up. He's been waiting for a challenge like this for a while now. I'd like to see you try, fuckface. The students that have slowly began to gather around the central plaza watch in horror as Izuku provokes the dangerous villain, taunting him with every dodge, every hit, every word. With a fierce roundhouse kick, Izuku strikes Shigaraki's side, but instead of being thrown backward, he grabs onto Izuku's leg. Excruciating pain spreads through his lower leg like a web. But Izuku just grits his teeth, refusing to give Shigaraki the satisfaction of hearing his pain cries. He can feel as his skin begins to peel from his bones, creeping up his leg slowly, until suddenly, it stops. Shigaraki looks up in shock and confusion, only to see Eraserhead glaring at him from his crumpled position on the floor. Hitoshi has made his way to his injured dad, cradling the man's wounded head in his lap. You've always been so cool, Eraserhead, Shigaraki says in a quiet voice that makes Izuku shiver. Amidst the distraction, Izuku takes the opportunity to break free. He yanks his injured leg away, launching himself at Shigaraki and tackling the villain to the ground. With the element of surprise on his side, Izuku lands several punches to the villain's face before the other can react. But then, he's thrown backwards, the webbing pain from before now making its way through his enclosed fist, before the pain can reach his wrists. There's a gust of wind and a loud, aggravating voice. Do not fear, I am here. Izuku internally groans at the hero's late arrival. Young Midoriya, I need you to remove yourself from this place immediately. You can't fight by yourself. Fuck you, Izuku snarls, catching both students and teachers off guard. I don't need your help. I've already disposed of that Namu thing. I don't need your help with this petty villain. Petty, Shigaraki screeches, lunging forward once more. Izuku extends his staff and swings it roughly as he dodges the outstretched hands, the hit connecting with the villain's ribs. He ends up on the ground once more, but Izuku isn't satisfied. As All Might fights the multiple villains around the area, unable to reach the green-haired boy, the void returns. Shigaraki, we're leaving. The voice is cold and determined, and for once, Shigaraki doesn't react like a child. Instead, he stands, hissing in pain as he retreats through the portal. Next time, I'll kill you, player 2. And All Might as well. With that chilling threat, the void, along with Shigaraki, vanish into thin air. Izuku is left surrounded by fallen bodies, his once clean uniform now stained with blood and brains as he pants heavily in the center of the grounds. He attempts to catch his breath, but he's interrupted by a sudden puff of smoke. Before the rapidly growing cement walls can fully surround the hero, Izuku watches in shock as All Might's powerful form is replaced with a small, weak-looking man who's coughing up blood. Shaking his head, Izuku decides it's best to think about it later. Right now, he needs to check on his teacher and classmates. He limps quickly over to Aizawa, where he is cradled in Hitoshi's arms and held close. As the other heroes arrive, just minutes too late, Present Mic comes running over to the two, eyes wide with panic. Feeling it's best to give the family space, Izuku retreats to where the other students have grouped, trying to assess the situation amidst the chaos. Is anyone hurt? He asks over the commotion. Several voices respond. Kaminari is unconscious, his head's bleeding. Ajuru's tail is badly injured. My hands are burnt but I'm okay. The voices continue to chime in, and Izuku quickly takes charge, making his way over to the injured students. Yaorazu, if you can, make some bandages. I need to stop Kaminari and Ajuru's bleeding. The girl nods, worry pinching her eyebrows as she attempts to create bandages. When her attempts fail, she slides to the ground, sobbing. I'm sorry, I'm trying, but it's not working. Izuku wastes no time removing his jacket, using a knife to tear the sleeves and skillfully applying the makeshift bandages tightly around Kaminari's head and Ajuru's tail. Kirishima, I need you to carry Kaminari out front. The ambulances should be there already. The redhead nods and gets to work, lifting the smaller boy with ease. Ajuru, can you walk? The boy shakily nods, standing on unsteady legs. Just in case, Sadu can support you out to the front. As Izuku is about to continue with his directions, hoping to ease the panic that spreads through the class, Katsuki suddenly pushes to the front, an angry, pained look on his face. "You need to go up front. You're hurt." The students around him seem to suddenly become aware of the condition the green-haired boy is in. He stands with his weight mostly on one leg, the other dragging limply behind him, his skin peeling painfully. His hand is dangling loosely at his side as well, the knuckles bloody beneath their crumbling skin. He's bleeding heavily from his head and side. But it's hard to tell how much is his own and how much is simply the blood and brains from the Namu. As Izuku begins to protest, surprisingly, it's Todoroki who steps forward. "He's right, you're injured, Midoriya. You've helped enough, you need to go to the hospital now." Izuku glares at the approaching boy. "I'm fine. I need to attend to the others." Pushing past Todoroki, Izuku makes his way to where Aoyama lays crumpled on the floor. "Lean on me, I'll take you up front." The blonde allows himself to be pulled to his feet, leaning most of his body weight on Izuku as they limp to the front. With every step, Izuku winces as the pain from his leg intensifies, but he pushes on, for the sake of Aoyama, for the sake of them all. When he arrives at the front, he hands the barely conscious boy to the paramedics who stand with a stretcher at the ready. He spots Hitoshi and Mike standing over Aizawa, who also lays on a stretcher, his hand clutching Mike's sleeve. The husbands leave in the ambulance, but Hitoshi stays behind, eyes locked on Izuku. By now, most students have exited the building and the paramedics are asking if anyone else is injured. Izuku stays silent. Hitoshi starts, voice wavering slightly. "You need to go to the hospital." The greenette looks down at his bloodied body. "I'm fine, Toshi. Don't worry. You're not fine, don't say that. Go to the hospital." The boy's voice raises into a yell, yet it still trembles, causing the students close by to glance at them with worry. "I'm really fine, they have more important patients. I'm not that hurt." "Izuku, look at me." The stern, cold tone makes Izuku finally meet Hitoshi's gaze. "Will you please go to the hospital?" Izuku bites down on his trembling bottom lip, guilt squeezing his chest. "I'm sorry, Toshi." But in an instant, he can feel his mind go hazy. His vision fogs over and his body is no longer his to control. "Stop protesting and go with the paramedics to the hospital." Izuku silently walks to the ambulance as Hitoshi's quirk washes over him. "Fuck." Izuku slowly regains consciousness with a groan, his body racked with pain at every movement. The sound of beeping can be heard from the distance, most likely from a different room. He opens his eyes and tries to look down at his hands, but they appear hazy and out of reach. He can't feel them. Everything hurts. It shouldn't hurt. Why does it hurt? He tries to move, but pain shoots through his whole body. It's indescribable, overwhelming pain. He's never felt something like it before and can't help the cry of agony that escapes him. Confusion and fear cloud his mind. "Where am I? What am I doing here? Why does it hurt so bad? I need to escape. I need to heal." Izuku wildly tries to look around him. Desperation grips him as he searches for a way out. But his weapons are all gone. Why are they gone? Slowly, panic begins to build in his chest. He needs to escape, to get away. He grabs at the wires and tubes attached to his arm and yanks them out painfully. Stumbling out of the bed, Izuku blindly makes his way toward what he hopes is the door. Everything is still dark. It's hazy and disorienting. Izuku runs. He ignores the searing pain from his leg and side, running as fast as he can around the dark area. He can't see anything. He doesn't know where he is. In his frantic search for an escape, he crashes into something, falling to the floor. He can't tell what it is, but hands begin to reach toward him, causing him to recoil. He scrambles up from the ground and dashes the other way. "I need to escape. Where the hell am I?" Fear and confusion fill him as he continues to run blindly. But something suddenly strikes his leg and the sound of shattering glass fills the air. He stumbles forward, landing on his hands and knees among the broken shards. Frantically, he begins to feel around the ground, searching for a large shard and ignoring the warm blood he can feel already running down his hands. He grabs a large, sharp piece and runs off again, holding the glass tightly. He continues his frantic escape, feeling along the walls until he comes to a corner. Corners are usually safe. Izuku sinks to the floor slowly. His mind is in turmoil and the pain is unbearable. Desperate to end the suffering, he presses the sharp shard against his neck. But before he can complete the fatal motion, someone intervenes, grabbing his arm and yanking it away. Suddenly, hands are on him. They're everywhere. Izuku tries to pry them off, tries to swipe at them with the glass, but it's quickly removed from his grasp, leaving him defenseless and at the mercy of the darkness that surrounds him. He's helpless. Hitoshi sits in Izu's room, waiting anxiously for his friend to wake up. His dad had already awoken and urged him to go wait with Izuku. And as much as he wanted to stay by his parents' sides, he felt the urgent need to apologize to his friend as soon as he possibly could. Most of the other students had been healed and woken up by now, gathering together in the waiting area, but Hitoshi would rather stay by his friend's side. The doctors apparently couldn't get a hold of Izu's parents, so he felt it was only right for the young boy to have someone waiting by his side when he awakened. Katsuki wanted to stay with Izuku too, and he had for a while, but he's currently checking on Kaminari and Mina's injuries. Hitoshi assured him he could watch over Izuku until he got back. Hell, was he wrong? Suddenly, the heart rate monitor's beeping speeds up, snapping Hitoshi from his half-asleep state. All his attention is now on the injured boy, who's sitting in his bed. Izu groans as he sits up, clearly in pain. He glances around the room, looking right past Hitoshi. The purple-haired boy doesn't think that Izuku can even see him. Did his eyes get damaged? They seem unfocused or something. The scarred boy begins to move around, and so Hitoshi calls out to him. Hey, Izu, they said not to move around too much. How are you feeling? The boy doesn't acknowledge the words. In fact, there's no sign he heard them at all. Izuku. Hitoshi tries again. Still, no response. Growing more worried, he approaches the bed. But as soon as he does, Izuku seems to grow frantic. He yanks the wires and UVs out of his arm, prying the blood pressure cuff off and leaving claw marks on his skin as he does. Hitoshi stands frozen, unsure of what to do. Izu, you can't do that. You need those so you can heal. But the boy doesn't listen. Instead, he stumbles from his bed, crying out in pain as soon as he puts weight on his injured leg. Before Hitoshi can reach across the bed and grab him, Izuku dashes from the room. Hitoshi doesn't know what to do, but acting on instinct, he runs after the injured boy. He can't be too fast at least. His leg is half disintegrated for fuck's sake. Once again, Hitoshi is sadly mistaken. By the time he runs out the doorway, Izu is far ahead of him, already at the end of the hallway. He dashes after the boy, unable to keep up, but willing to try anyways for the sake of his friend. Izuku runs through the halls as nurses and patients attempt to jump out of his way. He runs into a wall, but seemingly unfazed, continues to dash around the corner. Hitoshi rounds the corner too, nearly sliding into the wall with his speed. Suddenly, Izuku crashes into Kirishima. He's reached the waiting classmates. Hey, didn't see you there. How are you feeling, Midoribro? Kirishima reaches his arm out to help the fallen boy. Instantly, the class surrounds him. Izuku, are you alright? Midoriya, you are supposed to be resting currently. The nurses said you shouldn't be out of bed for the next 24 hours. Midoriya, you're here. The boy stays on the floor for a split second, his eyes hazy yet filled with fear and his expression distant. Hitoshi arrives behind the frantic boy, panting and out of breath. Somebody get Aizawa. Nobody moves, they just stare at him, confused. Now, Todoroki is the first to react, quickly running to fetch their teachers, and Hitoshi lets out a sigh of relief. But when he glances back at the floor, Izuku is nowhere to be seen. Behind him, he hears a crash and turns to find Izu on the floor once more, this time surrounded by broken glass. He'd ran into a side table, the vase of flowers shattering all over the floor. Blood trickles down Izuku's knees and hands, yet he pays it no attention, frantically patting the floor around him. Izuku, are you okay? Hiroraka rushes forward, squatting down near the boy with panic in her voice, but he doesn't react. Instead, his fingers wrap around a large shard of glass, cutting into his palm as he grips it as if his life depends on it. Midoriya, what are you doing? Ader rushes to his side, worried, but the boy simply stumbles to his feet and dashes away once more. Hitoshi chases after him, but the rest of the class is too stunned to react. Izu runs with his fingers dragging along the wall, leaving a trail of bloody streaks behind him. Once he reaches a corner, he sinks into a sitting position. Aizawa finally arrives on the scene, but he doesn't hesitate like Hitoshi does. As soon as Izu raises the glass to his neck, pressing it harshly against the scar that already resides there, Shouter rushes forward, grabbing his arm. Midoriya, drop the glass. What are you doing? This is the most panicked Hitoshi has ever heard his dad, and that alone terrifies him. Koshi, help me. Instantly, Hitoshi rushes forward, dropping to his knees beside his friend. He pries the glass from his grip as his dad manages to pull the boy's arm from his neck. Finally, having the blood-stained weapon secured, Hitoshi takes a step back, distancing Izu from the weapon. Behind him, Todoroki stares in horror. Izuku stops fighting. Instead, he curls up into himself, sobs racking his body until he falls unconscious. When Shoto witnesses Midoriya crash into Kirishima, an unsettling feeling washes over him and he instantly senses that something is off. The way Midoriya's green eyes look fogged over and distant just doesn't sit right with him. Instinctively, he stays back, watching from a distance as his classmates surround the boy. Shinsu arrives right behind Midoriya and very out of breath. He urgently yells at the class to get their teacher, and seeing nobody else take action, Shoto determines it's up to him. He dashes to the room the nurse tells him Shouta Aizawa is residing in, and without knocking, he bursts in. The sight that greets him takes Shoto by surprise. Aizawa and present Mike are holding hands over the side of the bed, present Mike's head resting on Aizawa's shoulder. Shoto shakes his head in an attempt to clear his racing thoughts. Now is no time to hesitate. Aizawa-sensei, we need you outside. The teacher looks up with concern in his eyes. What happened? It's Midoriya. I don't know exactly what's wrong, but Shinsu told me to come get you. The two teachers exchange a brief glance before present Mike quickly helps the injured man out of bed. The three of them rush back to where Shoto had last seen the green-haired boy, but the scene has transformed drastically. Glass and blood litter the floor as his classmates stand around, visibly shocked and worried. What happened? Aizawa's stern voice cuts through the tension like a knife as he demands an explanation. Everyone turns toward him instantly. Midoriya ran into the table. He grabbed a piece of glass and went that way. There's a trail of blood on the wall that will lead you to him, sensei. Ada is quick to give the details, although he stumbles over his words slightly, and Aizawa rushes in the direction the boy points. Shoto hesitates, listening to the hushed whispers about Midoriya. He didn't seem like he could hear us, or even see us. Did you see the scars on his wrists? Do you think he's okay? He looked so small and vulnerable. I've never seen him like that before. Shoto decides to follow his teacher, selfishly wanting to see what the others are talking about. He follows the bloody trails of the wall and floor, quickly finding Midoriya in a corner at the end of the hallway. Aizawa is rushing toward him as Shinsu stands frozen a few feet away. As Shoto quickly approaches closer, the sight freezes him in his step. Midoriya sits trembling in a corner, his knees and hands covered in blood. There are deep, vertical scars etched into his wrists that travel up his forearms, telling a haunting tale, accompanied by numerous jagged scars going horizontally. His eyes are wide, frantically searching for something. But he remains unresponsive to the calls of his teacher and friend. But the most chilling part, the thing that makes Shoto freeze, is the shard of glass clutched in his hands, pressed threateningly against his neck. A stream of blood already stains the collar of his shirt. Shoto watches in horror as Aizawa has to wrestle Midoriya's arm away from his throat while Shinsu desperately pries the bloodied glass from his fingers. Midoriya stops fighting, curling in on himself as he sobs and shakes, before finally succumbing to unconsciousness. Shoto sits in Midoriya's hospital room with his son and Bakugou. The kid has been unconscious for several hours after they rushed him back to the hospital bed. The tired hero has no idea what had happened. After he frantically had to prevent Midoriya from slitting his own throat, Shoto had fallen into a heavy silence, still trying to process the shocking events. The doctors had informed him that it was likely a trauma response. Midoriya had been disoriented from the drugs, and instead of allowing them to wear off slowly, he fled. Shoto doesn't know if he can handle discovering the source of whatever trauma caused such a drastic response in the young boy. However, he needs an answer. As a teacher and as a hero, he needs to protect his students. This problem child is no different. Not to mention, he saved Shoto's life. Yet he tried to end his own. Multiple times from the look of it. Midoriya's scars are troubling, and Shoto wants to ask about their origin. He wants to ask where the kid's parents were, and why they haven't answered the hospital's calls. So many questions fill his mind. So many things Shoto wants to ask this kid, but he knows the small boy would never answer. As he watches Midoriya's peaceful, even breathing from the hospital bed, Shoto can't shake the feeling that he's met this kid before. There's something so deeply familiar about him, something that tugged at the edges of his memories, but the details still remained elusive. Katsuki watches as his teacher exits the room, needing to get his vials checked before he can be discharged. He can't help the anger that builds up in his chest as he stares at the new bandages around Izuku's neck. Fucking rat. If you want to keep your secret, you can't go around killing yourself in the middle of the damn hospital. Fucking idiot. Katsuki knows he's using his anger to mask his worry, but he'd never admit that to anyone, not even himself. Mindfuck's head is leaning on his shoulder, fast asleep. Katsuki wants to push it off, to shove him away, but he knows the insomniac can use the sleep, so he stays still. Suddenly, Izuku begins to stir. Katsuki jolts forward, causing Hitoshi to wake up too. They both rush to his bedside, positioning themselves on either side so he can't escape again. This time, when he wakes up, he seems much more present than before. Izu, can you hear me? Ibags speaks up hesitantly. Toshi, is that you? His voice sounds groggy. I feel fuzzy. Fuzzy? The fuck does that mean? Cat's here too. Yeah, the boy cheers. I just feel fuzzy, like I'm floating on air. It doesn't hurt anymore though. The two boys exchange worried glances, both seeming to realize how drugged up Izuku is at the same time. Ibags looks hesitant when he speaks next, but he asks nonetheless. Izu, can I ask you some questions? The freckled boy nods and Katsuki can't help the feeling of dread building in his stomach. Shit, Izuku can't lie when heavily sedated like this. He's going to reveal everything. The idiot. He begins to speak up, to cut the questions off, but then stops himself. Maybe it's for the best that Mindfuck knows. It would be nice to have it not be some hush-hush secret. He stays silent. What were you doing with the glass earlier? The glass. Izuku closes his eyes, attempting to recall the memory. Oh, I was trying to kill myself. The words hit Hitoshi like a ton of bricks. His face pales at the boy's cheerful tone, horror and pain filling his eyes as he glances at Katsuki. The blonde averts his gaze. Why did you want to kill yourself? Hitoshi's voice is choked, the words trembling as if he's trying to hold back tears. Izuku doesn't notice, seemingly unaffected by the weight of the question. Well, it hurt really bad, so I wanted to sleep. I need to heal so I can protect my friends. He responds matter-of-factly and Hitoshi only pales more. Izu, that wouldn't heal you. You'd be gone. No. Izuku furrows his brow in a childlike manner. It would heal me. It always does, Toshi. What do you mean? Have you tried to kill yourself before? Tried. He laughs. Toshi, I've killed myself plenty of times. I can't die, silly. Silence fills the air as Hitoshi tries to comprehend what Izuku just revealed. I don't understand. He finally says in a small voice. Ask Kaken. He can explain. Fuck. In an instant, Hitoshi's angry eyes are on him. You knew about this. Katsuki sighs. It's more complicated than it seems. Tell me, he growls. The blonde sighs again. It's his quirk. He found out he had it at 14, maybe 13, I don't remember. But he can't die. He regenerates after he does. He's immortal or some shit. But it heals his body every time he does. Hitoshi can only stare. What? How many times has he done that? Katsuki pauses. I'm not sure. When I found out about a month or so ago, he was at, 50 I think. 50. He's killed himself 50 times. Nope. Izuku pipes up, cheerfully popping the pea. I've killed myself a lot, but usually I just get killed. He flashes a bright smile, as if that's supposed to make the situation better. Killed? Why the hell are you getting killed? Mindfuck. We can talk about thy. Katsuki tries to intervene, but Izuku blurts out the answer. Because I'm Nightfall, silly Toshi. Fuck. I didn't want him to find that out. Izuku's gonna kill me when he wakes up. Hitoshi is silent. He turns to Katsuki, his voice a harsh whisper. Is that true? The blonde can only nod. As soon as Izuku steps into the classroom, he's swarmed by students and friends, all bombarding him with questions he can't answer. Before he can even attempt to start making excuses, Katsuki releases loud explosions from across the room. Oi, back off extras. Give him some fucking space. Izuku sends a small smile Katsuki's way, grateful for the breathing room. But even as he sits down at his desk, he can't help but notice the concerned glances of his friends. Hitoshi makes his way over instantly, ignoring Katsuki's words, and Izuku can feel the guilt building in his chest. You've been ignoring my messages, asshole. You have so much explaining to do. His voice is firm, but holds no anger. Still, Izuku sinks lower in his seat. I know. Are you free after school? I'll explain everything. Yeah, you fucking better. With that, Hitoshi returns to his desk, shooting Kaminari, who's staring at him, a glare before slouching down in his chair. Izuku sighs deeply as the class begins, lost in his thoughts instead of paying attention to his heavily bandaged teacher. After waking up for the third time in the hospital, he'd fully come back to his senses. But after remembering everything he had said and done, Izuku instantly wished he could have back to sleep forever. But he knows that's not possible. And now, so does Hitoshi. Fuck. I don't know how I'm gonna explain this all to him. He had escaped the hospital soon after waking up, jumping out his window and scaling down the building quickly before rushing home. Once he arrived, Izuku killed himself instantly. The school was closed the next day, and since it was Thursday already, he had the weekend to recover. He feigned a limp and kept his hand wrapped even after the fact, not wanting it to be too unbelievable. And with the worried glances from his classmates, he was sure he was doing a good job. Katsuki, however, looked at him with raised eyebrows when he noticed his still bandaged hand, so the freckled boy knew that he hadn't believed his performance. While Aizawa talked about the upcoming sports festival, Izuku took the chance to observe the injuries of his fellow classmates. He often did this, taking down notes as he went. Some might find it creepy, but he enjoyed learning more about his friends. The bell rings, and before Izuku can escape the classroom, Aizawa calls out to him. Midoriya, stay after class. I'd like to talk with you. He sighs deeply, stepping away from the door as Kaminari makes sounds at him. What can I help you with, sensei? Izuku asks, nonchalantly. Aizawa raises an eyebrow. Take a seat. Izuku does and can't stop his leg from bouncing anxiously as his teacher stares intensely into his eyes. Midoriya, I'm concerned by your actions at the hospital. Do you remember what happened? To be completely honest, he doesn't. Was Aizawa in the room when I told Hitoshi about my quirk? He shakes his head. The teacher sighs. You ran from your hospital room, crashed into your classmates, ran from your classmates and into a table, and broke a vase. That's not too bad at least. Aizawa takes a deep breath, as if preparing to continue. Then, you grabbed a shard of glass, hid in a corner, and tried to slit your throat. After Hito Shinsu and I got the glass away from you, you proceeded to have a panic attack before passing out. Izuku's breathing stops as the panic begins to rise in his throat. Fuck. If Aizawa notices his panicking, he doesn't mention it. You don't remember this. The green-haired boy shakes his head, unable to speak. Do you know why this might have happened? Izuku takes a deep breath, frantically racking his brain for any plausible excuse. I've always been afraid of hospitals, so when I woke up, I must have freaked out, I guess. He internally curses himself for the lame answer. Aizawa seems to be thinking the same thing. And why would your first reaction to that be to try and kill yourself? Izuku winces at the bluntness of the question. Well, I used to have a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms, so when I woke up not knowing where I was and still heavily sedated by the pain medicine, I must have unintentionally resorted to my old ways. I don't do that type of thing anymore, really. The teacher just raises an eyebrow. I thought you freaked out because you were in a hospital, but you just now said you didn't know where you were. At this, Izuku has no response. He simply stares, mouth opening and closing as he attempts to think up an excuse. Aizawa sighs. We weren't able to reach your parents either. Is there a reason for that? Shit, this just keeps getting worse, doesn't it? My mom works long shifts, so she must have been working and unable to access her phone. He lies easily. Izuku has told this lie more times than he can remember. What job does your mother work that would keep her away from her phone for 12 hours? 12 hours? She's a nurse. She was helping with a long surgery at that time, I believe. Aizawa seems to accept this answer, though he still seems suspicious. And why did you escape from the hospital before being released? Goddammit, why did they tell him that? Can't I get a fucking break? Well, I was wanting to be by my mom since I wasn't feeling the best and I didn't want her to have to travel all the way to that hospital just to see me. How thoughtful of you, Aizawa replies dryly. Can I go to my next class now? I really don't want to miss too much, Izuku says innocently as he begins to stand up and edge his way toward the door. The teacher sighs but nods, and so Izuku runs out the classroom in an instant, not giving Aizawa the chance to take it back or ask any more questions. Shoto watches from across the lunchroom as Midoriya's friends bombard him with questions. Kirishima, Ida, and Uraraka are the most inquisitive, but many others join in. He takes note of every little thing that seems off. Bakugou, despite how much he seems to care about Midoriya, seems completely unfazed by the whole ordeal. In contrast, Shinsu, who's also extremely close to Izuku, seems almost angry at him. He sits at Bakugou's table, instead of his usual place next to Midoriya, glaring daggers at the green-haired boy. Midoriya himself seems off as well, acting far more anxious about answering the questions than any normal person would be. He appears more bothered by the fact that people are asking him about it than by the incident itself. Then, along comes All Might, throwing everything off and disrupting the scene. Midoriya, my boy, I'd love to have lunch with you in my office today, the hero announces in a booming voice. The green-haired boy just scowls, his disposition going from anxious to annoyed in seconds. I'm not your boy, and as you can clearly see, I'm having a conversation with my friends right now. All Might blinks at the harsh words and his friends gape at him. Midoriya, that is no way to speak to your superior. Ada is quick to scold. We will all be here after school. We can talk more then. You should really listen when a teacher requests to speak to you. Midoriya takes a deep breath before standing up and following the hero out of the room. Many aspects of the scene that unplayed before him bother Todoroki. For one, Midoriya seemed extremely uncomfortable with the hero's offer, not even bothering to grab lunch when going to eat lunch with All Might. But what was the most confusing thing to Todoroki was how Midoriya's limp suddenly disappeared as he followed All Might out of the room. He'd had one previously during the day, and yet suddenly it's gone. What could be going on between them? Why would he fake a limp? Ochako watches as Izuku follows All Might out of the room. Puzzled, he seemed so uncomfortable. I wonder why. Tsu seems to be thinking the same thing, speaking up once the two are out of earshot. What's going on between Izuku and All Might Sensei? Izuku is always so rude to him. Ochako nods in agreement, but before she can respond, a loud thud from the other side of the table interrupts her train of thought. Bakugou, with a large scowl on his face, slammed his tray down on the table. As he sits down aggressively, his eyes don't leave the doorway through which Izuku had left. Why the fuck did you extras let him go with that asshole? He growls, turning his glare on the people at the table. Kirishima and Ida instantly speak up. You shouldn't call your classmates extras. It's extremely rude. Beka bro, calm down. What's up with him? Bakugou just growls as Shinsu slides into the chair beside him, answering the redhead when Bakugou stays quiet. All Might isn't fit to be a hero, not after what he did to Izu. This gets all their attention. Kaminari, Mina, and Siro join the table, waiting for the show. After what he did All Might Sensei know Izuku before UA? What did he do to Midoriya? Ochako startles at the new voice, not having noticed Todoroki come up behind her. Since when was he listening? That fucking asshole saved him after a villain attack. How does that make him an asshole? Ochako interrupts, confused. She doesn't notice when Ada and a few others look at her in shock for cursing. Bakugou just growls. I wasn't finished, pink cheeks. With a dramatic huff, he continues his story. Ochako is beginning to realize that he isn't as scary and mean as he tries to act. He didn't take the fucking rat to the hospital or anything, just left him on the rooftop of a random building. Then, when the nerd asked him if he could be a hero, All Might said he wouldn't be able to save anyone, that he could never be a hero. After he finishes, Bakugou leans back in his seat and stares at the shocked faces of his classmates. Ochako is the first to speak after the prolonged silence. Although Bakugou has an intense personality, angry and loud, he's definitely not a liar. Well, you're so right. He is an asshole. She stares down at her empty plate, trying to process all the information. She doesn't notice how Tsu looks at her in awe, or how Bakugou watches with a hint of pride, and certainly not how Ida and the rest look at her in disbelief. But her words are all it takes for the rest of the students to jump into conversation, trying to make sense of what Bakugou had said. Izuku glares at All Might from across the room. The man sits nervously on the couch of the teacher's lounge. What do you want? Izuku asks, bluntly. Well, how about we have lunch first? Then we can. I don't have lunch. I'm not hungry. Why did you bring me here? All Might glances at Izuku's empty hands, seemingly just realizing that the kid has no bento box in his hands. Oh, okay, come sit down and then we can talk. The scarred boy takes the seat as far away from the teacher as he can, arms crossed tightly and scowl fixed on his face as All Might begins to speak. There are 2 things I wanted to talk to you about. Young Midoriya, he begins. Firstly, I wanted to know about your attitude towards me. I don't know why you have such a strong dislike for me. The pieces come together in Izuku's mind. You don't remember me, do you? It's not spoken as a question, more as a statement, but the teacher's silence and avoided eye contact is enough of an answer for the young student. You saved me from this sludge villain a while back, then left me on a rooftop and told me I wouldn't be able to save anyone, that I could never be a hero. Realization and recognition flashes behind the hero's eyes. You've changed so much. Those scars. When he doesn't continue, Izuku decides to get an answer from the older man. Well, how about now? What's your answer to my question? Your question? Izuku huffs in annoyance. Can I be a hero like you even if I'm quirkless? The teacher pauses, finally meeting the green-haired boy's gaze. Young Midoriya, I'm sorry, but as a quirkless person, I just don't think it's safe for you to be a hero. They might be able to save some people, but I don't believe they could ever truly be a successful hero. Izuku stands abruptly, cutting off whatever else All Might have said. Glad to hear you haven't changed, he growls, turning to leave. Wait, my B Midoriya, I had something else I wanted to talk to you about. Izuku pauses, his hand on the door handle. At the USJ incident, after the villains left, you saw me in my other form. I received an injury years ago and it's created a time limit for how long I can be in my strong form. I won't tell anyone your secret or whatever, I don't care enough to spread that around anyways. I'll be leaving now. Itoshi glares at Izu from across the table, his intense eyes piercing the avoidant green ones. So, what did you want to talk about, Toshi? Izuku asks nervously, staring down at his ice cream in an attempt to hide from the tired boy's gaze. You know what I want to talk about. I need you to explain it to me. All of it. Izuku sighs but nods. Well, to put it simply, I have a quirk and it pretty much lets me revive when I die. Izuku mixes his ice cream around with his spoon. I found this out a little over 4 months ago, after a failed suicide attempt. But then, I realized I could help people out with it, and so I decided to become a vigilante. They called me Nightfall. Itoshi stares. He knew all this already, but hearing it when Izuku is fully awake and not sedated makes it seem much more real. I've done so much research about Nightfall. You're all over the internet, all over the news. You're like a nationally wanted criminal. Izuku's eyes go wide with shock, dropping his spoon. What? On the news? I'm not a criminal. To them you are. Vigilantism is illegal. Izuku just gapes at the purple-haired boy. What? Are you not on social media? Do you ever read the news? Izuku shakes his head. I have a flip phone. I can't. A flip phone? What the fuck is wrong with him? Itoshi grabs his own phone from his pocket, pulling up the most recent article on Nightfall. Before sliding it across the table, read, infamous Nightfall captures wanted serial killer who has evaded the police for 2 years. Victims claims he's a real hero. Izu reads the title, shock evident on his face as he skims through the news report. What? How long has this been happening? Itoshi raises his eyebrows. For about 2 months now. The scarred boy groans and puts his head in his hands. How often do you patrol? Every night. Most pro heroes don't patrol on my side of town, but somebody has to help the people. Itoshi nods. I think I understand. But you really should tell Aizawa or something. No fucking way. I always see him during patrols. He'd kill me if he found out. The insomniac laughs. Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't put it past him. Izu just groans. Hey, the sports festival is coming up soon. How do you think you're gonna do? This time, it's Hitoshi's turn to groan. God, I can't imagine how bad I'm going to fail. The people are going to hate me. You have an amazing quirk. They'll love you. Hitoshi, who definitely doesn't agree, just nods. He knows that the crowd will most likely be much more harsh towards Izu anyways with him fighting quirkless. Well, let's just do our best. Who knows, maybe we'll win. Class 1A sits in the waiting room, brimming with anticipation as they prepare for the sports festival to begin. Beside him, Uraraka is mumbling under her breath, deep in thought and strategy. Izuku glances at her and gets shivers from the intensity of her expression. He's never seen her like this before. Hey, Uraraka, are you alright? The girl blinks up at Izuku, as if surprised at being interrupted. Yeah, I'm just super excited, she says, the intense aura returning. Let's crush this sports festival. Wow, that's quite a determined look, Achako. Is there a reason for you wanting to win so badly? Tsuyu places a finger on her chin and tilts her head as she asks Uraraka, whose face flushes slightly. Well, I do. But it's not very hero-like. What is it, Kiro? Tsuyu prods. The money, she confesses bashfully. My parents' business hasn't been doing the best recently and they've sacrificed so much to support me in my dream of coming here, so I need to win and support them back. That is an extremely noble reason, Uraraka. Ada chops his hands around enthusiastically. Wanting to support your family is truly honorable. I respect you for that. Izuku can't help but agree, but before he can voice his agreement, a voice from behind calls out to him. Midoriya. Todoroki speaks, his voice cold. Objectively speaking, I believe I possess far more power and strength than you. I'm going to defeat you today. Izuku can only blink in shock at the sudden declaration of rivalry from the dual-colored boy. Alright, is the only response he can think of. Whoa, why all this intensity right before we start? Kaminari chimes in from across the room. Todoroki just glares in response. Finally, Izuku finds his words. I know for a fact that many people here have much more power than me, but that won't stop me from fighting back. You may be able to beat me, Todoroki, but I won't make it easy. I'm going to put up a fight. I'm going to give it my all. Izuku continues to glare into Todoroki's beautiful, heterochromatic eyes for the few more moments before a voice blares over the speakers, beckoning them out of the room. The students are making their entrance now. The obstacle race is about to begin. 3.2.1 GOOO. As President Mike's voice rings out over the stadium, Izuku springs into action, leaping as high as he can and using his staff to gain extra height. He wasn't allowed to use his knives at the festival, but his bow staff was permitted due to his quirkless status. Izuku's quick decision apparently was the right one, because as soon as the race begins, Todoroki instantly blankets the floor with ice, freezing most contestants in their tracks. Many WANA students and a few others manage to evade the ice as well, sprinting after Todoroki's form in the distance. Izuku dashes forward, vaulting over frozen students before finally emerging from the starting tunnel. He watches as multiple robots are frozen over from Todoroki's power before crashing down behind him. Rushing forward, Izuku effortlessly overtakes many students, nimbly navigating the fallen robots. The noise from the stadium and the commentary from Mike and Aizawa doesn't faze Izuku. He's accustomed to deafening crowds from his months in the underground fighting ring. Grabbing a random scrap of metal plating from the robots, he straps it onto his back. Ahead of him, many students have already reached the next obstacle, a series of ropes connecting many small islands suspended over a pit of darkness. Izuku feels at home here. He races across the initial ropes, his balance honed from rooftop traversals. He leaps across the closer islands, his enhanced jumping ability and shoes giving him an edge. With a few hundred yards left to go, Izuku glances up at the screen that's presented for the crowd. At that exact moment, he spots himself on the massive screen, showing him gracefully navigating the treacherous ropes. Izuku grins, deciding to give the crowd a quick show. In one flawless, fluid motion, Izuku launches into a front flip, effortlessly turning in the air and landing right back on the ropes. The crowd roars. Izuku continues to run, surpassing many competitors with his speed until he reaches the next obstacle. He watches as Todoroki and Katsuki charge right ahead, both setting off multiple explosions as they go. A mind failed. Great. It's too far for him to meticulously make his way through in time to surpass the boys in front of him, so Izuku comes up with an amazing, terrible idea. Quickly, he carefully extracts 10 mines from the area, barely noticing the students rushing past him. He places the mines a few feet in front of himself and, after backing up and getting a running start, holds the scrap metal in front of him and hurls himself onto the mines. The explosion is bigger than he could have imagined, creating a shockwave of fire and noise as he hurtles through the air. Izuku zooms past his class, soaring ahead of Todoroki and Katsuki, before realizing he didn't think far ahead enough and finding himself quickly plummeting towards the ground. Using all the strength he can muster, Izuku rotates in midair before slamming the metal into the ground. The force propels him forward once more while simultaneously sending the two boys sprawling to the side as he crashes to the ground. Ignoring the painful landing, Izuku bolts forward, entering the open arena within seconds. Izuku Midoriya has returned to the stadium, taking first place. Mike's voice is quickly drowned out by the roar of applause from the stadium, but Izuku isn't listening anymore. Behind him, Todoroki is second to pass through the gates, quickly followed by a cursing Katsuki. God fucking damn it. Fuck you, shitty rat. Despite his harsh words, a large grin adorns his face. He slaps Izuku on the back before joining the other victors. Next up is the headband heist battle. The students listen carefully as Midnight outlines the rules of the second event. Each participant is given a headband with a specific point value based on their ranking in the previous race. Izuku, the winner of the first, will receive a headband worth 10 million points. The objective is simple: collect as many headbands from other participants as possible and accumulate as many points as possible. The playing field is a large, maze-like arena with various obstacles, hideouts, and buildings for the students to navigate. They can create alliances or go solo as well. Izuku can't help the grin that spreads across his face at the idea. This is the perfect playground for me. As they receive their headbands, the event commences. Instantly, Izuku dashes forward, scaling the nearest structure and leaping to the top, distancing himself from the other student. Several pairs of eyes follow him up, so he decides he should lose them before assessing the situation. A few students attempt to climb up and chase after him, but with little luck. Izuku easily evades their pursuit and in a matter of moments, he vanishes. He leaps from rooftop to rooftop, occasionally swinging down and passing through buildings and structures in order to elude his pursuers. After about 10 minutes, his trail goes cold, and most students opt to go for other, easier headbands instead. Izuku watches from his perch on the top of the building as the students below fight. He doesn't stay in one place for long, constantly changing direction as he runs. With only 5 minutes remaining, Izuku drops back to the ground, dashing through the unexpected crowd and snatching as many headbands as he can before they notice him. Katsuki is one of the first to spot the green-haired boy, instantly launching forward with explosive blasts, hurtling at Izuku. With a swift roundhouse kick, Izuku redirects Katsuki out of the way at the last moment, giving himself time to jump back and dash away. He can hear Katsuki's curse-filled shouts following him, but he pays them no mind. With just 2 minutes remaining, he suddenly slams into a wall of ice. Fuck, of all times to run into Todoroki. The boy stands before him with an intense glare aimed at the smaller boy. The time has come. I'm taking that headband. Shoto had been waiting for Midoriya to descend to the ground, recognizing that he wouldn't be able to fight properly on the rooftops. When Midoriya finally does, Shoto corners him immediately. The green-haired boy sports multiple headbands around his neck already, but the coveted 10 million point one remains resting on his head, untouched. Shoto swiftly charges forward, releasing a wave of ice, but Midoriya dodges it easily. The chase continues for another minute, but with only one more remaining, Shoto finally closes the gap between them. He reaches out, snatching the headband in an instant and securing it around his neck. But while doing so, Midoriya has already devised a plan. The boy rushes at Shoto, but when shards of ice hurtle straight toward him, Midoriya quickly extends his staff, using it to flip him over his opponent. Shoto watches in slow motion as Midoriya soars over him, hand are stretched and grabbing at the headbands around Shoto's neck. After gaining a firm grip on them, he twists in midair, delivering a kick aimed at Shoto's left side. Before he can stop it, his arm bursts into flames, blocking Midoriya's painful strike. Shoto crashes to the ground, but he doesn't think about the throbbing pain from the blow. I used my left side. I made a promise to myself that I'd never use it in combat. But when I was driven into a corner, in the small tunnel outside of the arena, Izuku watches as Todoroki glares across at him. You wanted to talk to me about something, right? A moment of tense silence ensues, the dual-colored boy simply glaring. Have you ever heard of quirk marriages? Todoroki proceeds to elucidate his pledge to never use his left side in battle, telling Izuku about his terrible father and even how he received his scar. At the end of his lengthy explanation, Todoroki falls silent for a minute, his heterochromatic eyes searching Izuku's face. Are you All Might's secret love child or something? Did he give you that scar on your face? Izuku is dumbfounded, unsure of how to even process this question. He gapes at the other boy, mouth open wide as he tries to find the right words. What? He finally exclaims. No, I hate that man, and I too despise my father. Yet here I am. I hate your father too, Izuku mutters under his breath, but quickly moves on. I'm definitely not related to All Might at all, thank God. I'd probably off myself if I was. He makes his tone light, attempting to make a joke, but the other flinches. Sorry, touchy subject, I guess. Uncomfortable silence hangs in the air. Todoroki finally speaks, and Izuku lets out a breath of relief. We're destined to fight in the next challenge eventually. I won't hold back. I'll defeat you without using my father's flames. Izuku's gaze hardens, and he smiles at the boy, determined. I won't let you have it that easily. Besides, they're not your father's flames, it's your quirk. They're your flames, Todoroki. Izuku stands across the arena from a tall, blonde-haired boy who wears a maniacal grin. Nido Monoma, quirk unknown. Izuku grits his teeth. He refuses to lose in the first round. As Mike counts down, Izuku assumes his position, ready to start. Begin. In an instant, Izuku lunges forward, kicking Monoma backward before the latter can even process the action. Monoma lands on the ground, eyes wide with surprise. But as Izuku goes to throw a punch, the blonde dodges and scrambles to his feet. Izuku backs up a few paces as Monoma extends a hand. A touch-based quirk. I should keep my distance. That was a great attempt, but unfortunately, you'll have to get closer to actually hit me, Monoma taunts. Izuku knows that it's a bad idea, but it's not Monoma's taunting words that tempt him, it's the desire to get the fight over with as quickly as possible. He launches himself forward, delivering a punch towards Monoma. It connects with the blonde's arm, raised to protect his face. But Izuku feels a hand wrapping around his wrist. Let's see how you do against the same strength and speed. Monoma begins to cackle, before he suddenly freezes, crumpling to the ground. The blonde begins to emit a blood-curdling scream, and Izuku stumbles back in shock. What is happening? The stands have gone silent, trying to figure out the same thing, but Midnight quickly intervenes. She yells at Izuku to cover his mouth and nose as she rips her sleeve, exposing her skin and releasing a pink mist. The screaming stops. Midnight clears her throat. Monoma is out. Midoriya advances to round 2. After a pause, the crowd begins to cheer. Izuku is left stunned, unsure of what just happened. He quickly drops down next to Monoma's unconscious body, and lifting him easily, he tells Midnight that he'll take the boy to the nurse. He carries the limp body through the halls, eventually depositing him on a hospital bed. Recovery girl gives the unconscious boy a sip of something, and he jerks awake. After scanning the room wildly for a few moments, his gaze settles on Izuku. He glares. What the fuck did you do? What's your quirk? Izuku blinks, taken aback. I'm quirkless actually. He glances back at the nurse behind him, but she exits the room with a knowing glint in her eye. No the fuck you're not. My quirk allows me to copy other people's quirks. That's not what it feels like when I try to copy a quirkless person. So I'll ask you again. What is your quirk? Izuku gulps, unsure if he should tell the truth or not. After a minute of hesitation, Monoma sighs. I won't tell anyone that you actually have one. If you want to put yourself at a disadvantage by pretending to be quirkless, then I want to stop you. I'm not at a disadvantage, and I have my reasons. Izuku protests. Then tell me what they are. Monoma shoots back. Izuku sighs in frustration before locking eyes with the blonde boy. I have a quirk that allows me to revive after death. I can't die. Monoma just blinks, then lets out a scoffing laugh. That doesn't exist. Nice try. I'm not lying. He yanks up the sleeves of his gym uniform and pulls at his collar to expose his scars. I've died countless times in various different ways. He lifts his hair from his forehead, revealing a circular scar near his hairline. I've been shot more times than I can remember. I've died from bleeding out. I've died in every way you can think of. And every time, I wake up the next fucking day. Monoma stares in horror, his face ghostly pale as Izuku awkwardly pulls his sleeves back down and rezips his collar. After a minute, he clears his throat and speaks. I must have gotten some type of mutation of that quirk. Everything went black, and I felt the most excruciating pain I've ever felt in my life. I thought I was going to die. The boys stare at each other for a second before Izuku smiles wryly at the other. Welcome to my world. The last thing Izuku expects to see as he walks down the halls is Endeavor's ugly face. He freezes upon spotting the flames, not wanting to run into the man he despises. His disdain for the hero has only grown after learning about what the asshole did to Todoroki and his family. Izuku discreetly watches from around the corner as Endeavor talks at his son, his rage extremely evident. Todoroki just glares up at him, unflinching. But despite the boy's facade of composure, Izuku can sense the fear in his posture. In his slightly trembling clenched fists, Endeavor raises his arm, as if about to strike or grab the boy. In a flash, Izuku intervenes. Don't even think about laying a fucking hand on him, he growls, suddenly appearing between Todoroki and the flaming pile of shit. Endeavor, startled by the sudden appearance, takes a step back, but he quickly regains his composure, lowering his hand and glaring down at the small boy. Who are you? How dare you talk to me like that, boy? Izuku glares right back, baring his teeth at the hero. Who am I? Who the fuck are you to raise your hand against someone? Let alone your fucking son. You have no right to tell me how to raise my. And you have no right to try to hit him. Todoroki stands frozen behind the Izuku, but after a moment, he places a hand on the shorter boy's shoulder. Midoriya. Izuku instantly turns and looks at the other boy, his gaze scanning over Todoroki's face as if checking for wounds, external and internal both. Are you hurt? Todoroki can only shake his head, eyes wide with awe and some emotion that Izuku can't quite put a name to. Don't ignore me. You're that quirkless kid who's going to fight Shoto, right? He's going to annihilate you. Mark my, hey, don't walk away from me. Izuku ignores Endeavor's continued shouting, guiding Todoroki toward the preparation rooms. Okay, good. Your match with Shiro is coming up. Let's go prepare. Izuku watches from the stands as the battles commence. Todoroki defeats Shiro in seconds and Shizaki does the same to Kaminari. Hatsumi uses Ida as a model for her inventions for nearly 10 minutes before cheerfully stepping out of the ring. And Hitoshi beats Aoyama with his mind control, forcing him to walk out of the ring. While Izuku watches intently, jotting down notes as he goes, he notices Uraraka leaving the stands, a nervous look on her face. He follows her to the preparation room, where she anxiously sits next to Ida, biting her nails. Hey, Uraraka, he calls, upon stepping into the room. How are you feeling about your next match against Kat? She gives him a small smile. Well, I'm trying to figure out a strategy to beat him, but I'm not sure how it's all going to play out. Since I've known him since we were kids, I could help you come up with one to beat him. Izuku begins, but before can add anything else, he cuts himself off, noticing the look of determination in her eyes. Thank you, Izuku, but it's all right. You've helped me so much already. I think I need to beat him on my own. I'd feel ashamed if I used someone else's strategy instead of one I came up with myself. The two boys stare at Uraraka, determination and courage etched into her every word. Izuku has never felt prouder of someone in his life. Okay, let's do our best then, Uraraka. We'll be rooting for you. Katsuki strides onto the field, his eyes locked onto the girl in front of him. Pink Cheeks isn't weak. He's going to have to be careful. He knows that she has a chance at beating him, though he refuses to give her that chance. As soon as the match starts, she charges forward, shouting something about not being able to lose. Katsuki would never admit it, but he's startled by her rapid attack. He releases a large explosion, engulfing them both in smoke. A few feet away, he spots the sleeve of Floaty's jacket and he launches himself toward it. But it's empty. Fuck. He barely spots her in time. She's behind him now, hands outstretched. But with reflexes quicker than most, he detonates another explosion, hurling her backward. She keeps pushing forward, rushing at him again and again. No matter how many explosions he unleashes, she keeps coming back for more. Katsuki can hear the crowd beginning to grow restless and uncomfortable. They're yelling at him, booing him. Hey, you mean to be a hero when you act like that? That's not hero-like at all. How dare you toy with a girl like that? Just knock her out of bounds already. Knock her out of bounds. Do they think I'm not trying? This pest isn't weak, she's not fucking helpless. He wants to turn around and shout into the stands. But he knows he has to keep his focus on his opponent if he wants to win. Who just said that he's toying with her? That better not have been a pro hero. Aizawa-sensei's voice rings out over the stands, sounding angry. Katsuki has never heard him show much of any emotion in his voice before. Bakugou clearly recognizes the strength of an opponent who's reached this far and is on guard as a result. If you think he's toying with her, then you're insulting Uraraka. He is refusing to let his guard down because he can see her strength. Katsuki can't help the surge of warmth in his chest as his teacher defends him. But that happiness is short-lived, because Uraraka is still standing. Thank you, Bakugou. Thank you for not letting your guard down and not underestimating me, she mutters, her fingertips touching together and a dangerous grin spreading across her face. In an instant, hundreds of debris pieces from the ring, thrown into the air by Katsuki's explosions, suddenly rain down on him. Without having time to think, he throws his hands in the air, unleashing the largest explosion he can muster, attempting to ignore the throbbing pain in his wrists and hands. Pink Cheeks stands frozen in shock for a moment before attempting to dash forward once more. But before she can reach him, she collapses to the ground. She tries, and fails, to stand back up multiple times. Katsuki can't help but respect the look of determination in her eyes. Uraraka is unable to continue. Bakugou advances to the next round. The stands don't cheer, at least not much, but Katsuki doesn't mind. He walks out of the arena. Achako smiles up at her friends. I did my best, so that's all that matters. She throws up 2 peace signs in an attempt to prove that she's not disappointed. Ada seems to buy this act, but Izuku and Tsu look unconvinced. They glance at each other, before back at her. Are you really all right, Uraraka? Izuku asks, hesitantly. Of course, Bakugou was really strong, but I almost got him at the end. A wave of sadness sweeps over her, but she attempts to push it down. I've got to step it up and give it my all if I want to get strong enough to beat him. Tsu looks at her, worry in the girl's green eyes. Are you sure? She's interrupted by a recovery girl's voice. All of you, shoo. I need to heal up Uraraka here, out, all of you. Her friends give her sympathetic smiles as they leave, but Achako can't help but feel relieved. After receiving a kiss and some energy gummies, she's alone again. Her phone buzzes in her hand, the caller ID reading Papa. Sorry for hanging up suddenly. What did you want to talk about? Her parents' voice ring through the phone, cheerful and proud. Achako can't help but wonder if their happiness is as fake as hers is. We were watching you on the TV. You were so close. You did incredible. Thanks, but it wasn't close. It wasn't incredible. I panicked at the end and got slaughtered. I needed to win so the scouters would see what I have to offer. There's no way they'll want me anymore. Why are you in such a hurry? There's no rush. We're both so proud of. Of course I'm in a hurry. I need to become a hero fast so I can take care of you guys. I have to. Tears begin to run down her face, but she doesn't bother wiping them away. Achako, there's no rush. I know our sweet, kind baby will without a doubt become a great hero. She begins to sob. What did I do to deserve such amazing parents? Izuku can't help but worry about Uraraka as he walks to the preparation rooms. She acted all right, but there wasn't a spark in her eyes like usual. I can tell she's disappointed. He sighs, wishing he could do more for his friend. But his own battle is coming up soon, and he needs to get ready. Before he can reach the room, though, Endeavor steps into his path. The hero pauses upon seeing Izuku, but then glowers down at the smaller boy. He narrows his eyes. Have we met before, boy? Izuku raises his eyebrows. Yes, he says slowly, as if talking to a child. We met about an hour ago when you were talking with Todoroki. Ring any bells? The hero scoffs. Of course I remember that. I met before today. You remind me of someone. Maybe a little someone who kicked you in the face. Nope. I'm sure I'd remember a flaming piece of shit like you. What did you call me? His flames grow exponentially. Shoto is going to beat your quirkless ass out there. Then you're going to regret ever saying anything. Maybe. But I sure as hell won't let it be easy. Besides, Todoroki's not you. His flames aren't yours. He will beat me on his own accord. Without waiting for another word, Izuku pettily flips the man off as he walks away, walking out into the arena. He makes a decision. I'm going to make Todoroki use his flames. I want to save him. Izuku stands in the arena, face full of determination. He drowns out the cheers from the crowds and the commentary from present Mike, who's telling them of the students' quirks or lack thereof. Todoroki stands across the ring, looking stoic yet conflicted. Izuku can't help but take notice of how beautiful he looks as the sun shimmers down on him. The match is about to begin, so he pushes away these thoughts. As soon as it starts, Izuku wastes no time, utilizing his speed to close the distance between the two of them. He darts toward Todoroki, his staff spinning expertly in his hands as he tries to keep his opponent off balance. Todoroki, caught off guard by Izuku's relentless assault and reckless attack, uses his ice to create a barrier to defend himself. With a swift leap, Izuku vaults over the towering ice wall, landing easily behind his opponent. He aims a quick strike at Todoroki's legs in an attempt to knock him off his feet, but the boy is prepared. Todoroki effectively counters the attack by creating ice panels beneath his feet. Unfettered, Izuku continues his offense, knowing that's his only chance at victory. He deflects the ice projectiles that soar his way, quickly closing the distance between the two again. He manages to land a few precise, hard strikes, and Todoroki grunts in pain, gripping his side as he goes on defense once more. As the fight rages on, the two students only grow more reckless, ignoring the many injuries they're sustaining. In a swift move, Todoroki manages to create an ice wall that surges forward, knocking the staff from Izuku's hand. The weapon clattered to the ground, leaving Izuku unarmed. Another ice wall surges forward, this time aimed at Izuku himself, but the boy flips over it, not letting the attack deter him. Izuku doesn't panic at the loss of his weapon. Instead, he swiftly adapts to the new situation. With a quick movement, Izuku closes the distance between him and Todoroki, relying on his well-trained combat skills to help him. His kicks and punches are precise and powerful, raining down mercilessly on the other boy. Todoroki attempts to put up a wall of ice between them, but Izuku just smashes through it, continuing his attack. As he gets close, he notices something strange. Todoroki is shivering. He's hindering his own fighting by not using his flames. He aims a high kick toward Todoroki's head, which the other skillfully blocks with an ice shield, but that doesn't stop Izuku. Instead, he lands a low sweep kick, making Todoroki lose his balance, though he quickly regains it. You have to use your flames, Izuku yells, watching the ice creep up the other's skin. He lands a kick to Todoroki's stomach, making him fly back and land on the ground. You're hurting yourself by not using them. Izuku is on the other in an instant, bringing his fists down in a painful display of power. You can't win without them. My father, Todoroki starts, throwing Izuku off with a wave of ice. Your father is a fucking bitch. It's not his power, it's yours. It's your power, Todoroki. In an instant, Todoroki releases his fire, forcing Izuku to leap backward to avoid the scorching flames. Izuku grins maniacally, and Todoroki watches him with wild eyes. He begins to circle the dual-toned hero, undeterred by the fire. He feigns a punch toward his face, and as Todoroki raises his arms to defend, Izuku immediately aims a powerful roundhouse kick at the other's side. Todoroki grits his teeth, but is unable to keep back the cry of pain that escapes him. Izuku might have cracked a rib with that. but he was certain he's broken at least 2 other ribs since the beginning of the fight. Izuku doesn't let him regain his footing. Instead, he rushes at him with all he has, launching himself toward Todoroki with a powerful jumping kick. Todoroki unleashes a fiery counterattack in a wide arc, but Izuku doesn't jump away this time. The flaming defense connects with his leg, causing Izuku to wince in pain. Todoroki's eyes widen as he's thrown back from the force of the kick, but he quickly sends another burst of fire forward. Once again, Izuku doesn't dodge the attack. Instead, he dashes forward, ready to hit Todoroki again. His pant leg is still on fire, but he ignores it. But before he can reach Todoroki, the other lets out a blast of fire once more, this one much more powerful than before. Despite not dodging, Izuku is thrown backwards, landing painfully on the ground. He climbs painfully to his feet, but Midnight interrupts his recovery, and Midoriya is thrown out of bounds. Todoroki will be advancing to the next round. Oh, I'm out. Fuck. He can hear shouts and cheers from all around him. He didn't dodge the flames. How is he even still standing after the beating he took? He's quirkless. How did he even stand a chance? I can't believe he lasted so long. With his headache growing, Izuku drowns out the sounds once more, limping slowly out of the arena. Before he can make it far, Todoroki calls out to him, "Midoriya, let me help you to the nurse." Without waiting for a response, Todoroki loops his arm around Izuku's shoulder, taking some weight off of the other's burned leg. "Call me Izuku, please. I don't really like my last name all that much." He tries to wish away the flush he can feel rising in his cheeks at the proximity of the two, but it stays nonetheless. "Izuku, okay." Once more, he flushes, not noticing how Todoroki does the same. "You fight well." Izuku hums in response, unsure what to say and unable to think clearly as he's pressed into the taller boy's side. "You're an equal to me, Izuku. You could have beat me if I didn't use my flames, I believe. Though I'm unsure of why you provoked me into using them." Izuku laughs. "I could see how it injured you not using them. Besides, your dad's an ass." They stop outside the office and Izuku mutters under his breath, "There's a reason I kicked that piece of shit in the face. He so deserved it." Before Todoroki can ask any questions, Izuku reluctantly pulls away from him, offering a smile of gratitude before entering the nurse's office. Shoto is left standing confused outside the nurse's office, his mind racing with so many different thoughts. He kicked my old man in the face. He was so close to me. I have to fight Bakugou soon. I can call him Izuku. He kicked him in the face. Before he can think about it more, he runs into the devil himself. Endeavor wears a large, uneasy grin on his face as he stares down at Shoto. "You've finally abandoned your childish whining and decided to use your flames. Good." Shoto glares up at the man. "I didn't do it because of you. In fact, I only used my left side because for a moment I forgot all about you." He pushes past his stunned father, but the man calls after him, "Stay away from that Midoriya kid. He's bad news. He reminds me of someone. I can't put a finger on who, but it wasn't a good someone." Endeavor growls. Shoto doesn't look back, doesn't respond. If he hadn't been interested in Izuku before, he definitely would have been after hearing what his old man had to say. But let's be honest, Shoto had been completely interested in Izuku long before his father mentioned him. After he was treated by an annoyed recovery girl, he had already missed a few fights, the only one left being Katsuki versus Todoroki. Izuku hurries back to the stands, not wanting to miss any part of the upcoming fight, but before he can make it there, he spots Ida. The tall boy is glued to his phone, an anxious look on his face. Izuku doesn't want to push it, but he makes a note to ask about what happened after the festival. The fight between Katsuki and Todoroki doesn't last long. Kat seems angry that the other is only using his ice powers once more, yelling and screaming at Todoroki to try and get any response. The dual-colored boy stays firm in his belief though, refusing to use fire the whole time. In the end, Katsuki knocks Todoroki out of bounds and he falls unconscious. The blonde continues to yell at him though, and so Midnight uses her quirk to knock him out. That feels excessive. He wouldn't actually hurt him if he's unconscious. Katsuki wakes up slowly, trying to remember where he is. Last he remembered, he was fighting Todoroki and the bastard was refusing to use his full power. "I didn't win. It doesn't count." When he finally can open his eyes, his senses coming back to him, Katsuki finds himself in a bright room. He tries to move, but something is restricting his arms. He tries to speak, to yell at somebody to let go of his goddamn hands, but he finds himself unable to speak. A large, metal muzzle covers his mouth, chains surround his arms with a metal box around his hands. He can feel his breathing speed up, his heart racing with panic. He can't help but think back to the sludge villain. He couldn't breathe with the liquid in his mouth and throat. He couldn't breathe. He can't breathe. He needs to escape. He needs to get out. He struggles against the chains in a feeble attempt to remove himself from them. He lets off large explosions, but all he can feel is his hands burning. The explosions being blocked by the metal cage causing them to explode onto his own hands instead. He doesn't care about the searing pain. He doesn't care about the blisters he can feel already forming on his raw hands. He only cares about escaping. He feels hands on him, grabbing his shoulders and arms. He lets off more explosions. It only hurts him more. His breathing is frantic, practically hyperventilating. He can't breathe. He can't breathe. He can't see where he's going, where the hands are dragging him. He can't see anything besides the disgusting, filthy green color of the slime that surrounds him, choking him. Nobody's coming to save him this time. He's going to die here. Midoribro, you were so manly out there. Are you sure you don't need any help walking? Ijiru offers. You got a nasty burn from the last fight. Midoriya just smiles. Call me Izuku, and I'm alright, but thanks. The two of them continue to walk through the halls before the awards ceremony. You also did really well against Cats. He's tough, but you stood your ground against him. It was super cool to watch. Can I ask a few questions about your Mido? Izuku freezes in his spot. And when Ijiru spares him a sideways glance, he freezes as well. The smile from before has dropped off Izuku's face, now replaced with a look of anger. His eyes are hard and cold, set on something in front of him. Ijiru takes a step back, the aura of intimidation causing him to startle. A shiver runs up his back. Man, I don't ever want to be on the bad end of that glare. Mido sure is scary. Ijiru follows Izuku's gaze, only to find something that makes his heart drop. In front of them, Midnight Sensei and a few people he doesn't recognize are dragging a restrained person, trying to shove them through the opening. Bakugou has a muzzle over half his face, muffling his screams and shouts. His arms are chained up and his hands enclosed in this huge metal cage. The look in his eyes is what makes Ijiru freeze though. Bakugou's crimson eyes look hazy and not all there. They're filled with tears and fear, more emotion than Ijiru has ever seen from the angry boy. While the redhead stays frozen, Izuku does not. In an instant, he crosses the hall, standing between the teachers and the entrance. He's yelling, but Ijiru can't hear the words, can't understand them. He finds himself standing by the angry green-haired boy, but despite their proximity, he still can't decipher the yelled words. He watches in slow motion as Izuku grabs the chained boy and shoves him into Ijiru. He quickly grabs hold of the trembling blonde, and suddenly, he's back to the present. Ijiru flinches at the loud yells coming from Izuku, quickly walking to the other end of the hall, bringing Bakugou with him. Once they get far enough away, Ijiru places the boy on the ground, using his hardening powers to break the chains and remove the muzzle. When he takes off the metal box from the boy's hands, he freezes in horror, his heart dropping. Bakugou's hands and wrists are covered in burns, bad ones. His skin is red and raw, blisters forming all over. Ijiru glances up at Bakugou, but he doesn't seem present. That's when he notices his breathing. Oh shit, he's hyperventilating. Is this a panic attack? The blonde lets off small explosions in his hands, and Ijiru realizes that's what must have caused his burns. He effectively hardens his skin near the dangerous hands and takes no harm. Shit, what do I do? Katsuki can distantly feel the explosions going off in his hands, but he no longer feels the pain of the burns. He wonders if he dissociated so hard that he can't even feel his body. He quickly realizes that he no longer feels the chains or the muzzle either. He can breathe, barely. He can feel a faint pressure around him, on his chest and back. His mouth isn't covered, but he can feel his forehead pressing against something. More explosions go off in his hands. He curses himself for not having better control of them. That's when he hears it. It's quiet, as if from a distance, and he can feel it more than actually hearing it. The long, deep breaths of someone surround him. He can feel their chest rising and falling with long, calculated breaths. It's comforting. Katsuki can feel his own breathing trying to match that of the others. Wait, is someone holding me? In an instant, Katsuki pushes himself away from the comforting embrace, only to find himself face to face with Shitty Hair. The redhead stares at him with wide eyes, worry flooding in them. Katsuki can feel the embarrassment creeping up his cheeks. Bakugou, are you okay? You were. Shut it. I don't want to hear it. Katsuki snaps. Fuck, this asshole saw me at my weakest. Is he gonna make fun of me? Think less of me. I'm not weak. He glares at Shitty Hair as he remembers the explosions he could feel going off earlier. Fuck you. Did I burn you? The boy smiles at him, and Katsuki thinks the son must be jealous. Nope. You're all good, dude. But it's nice to know that you care. Huh? No, I don't. Shut up, Shitty Hair. Katsuki stands up quickly, trying to brush off the other boy, who just laughs. He sees Izuku berating a teacher at the end and walks over to him. The scarred boy has a fierce look in his eyes, as if he's about to murder someone. Katsuki respects it. As soon as he gets near, the teacher rushes off and Izuku turns to him. You okay? The blonde glares. Of fucking course I am. What happened? A dark look flashes over his face as he talks, his voice bitter. Midnight and some other teachers and nurses chained you up because you wouldn't stop resisting. They put you in a muzzle and a metal cage around your hands. Let me see them. Katsuki knows better than to fight it when Izuku's like this. So he lifts his hands up, wincing when the other lightly runs his fingertips over the burns. Izuku's face, somehow, gets ever darker. I'm going to fucking sue them. Katsuki just rolls his eyes. I'm not fucking weak. I can handle a few small burns. God knows I've had my fair share of self-inflicted burns. Before Izuku can protest more, President Mike's voice rings out over the stadium, calling all winners to the stands. Katsuki reluctantly goes, but not before threatening both Izuku and Shitty Hair to make sure they don't say anything ever. Both just laugh and agree. Once on the stand, Katsuki remains unrestrained. He stands there, bored, as fucking All Might gives some shitty speech. Four Eyes wasn't able to make it to the ceremony for some reason, so Birdface gets the first medal, then a hug from the hulking teacher. Next, that half-in-half bastard gets his medal and hug. When All Might finally reaches Katsuki, he says some stupid words before placing the gold medal around his neck. Katsuki will throw it away when he gets home. The so-called hero leans down to give him a hug, but Katsuki scowls at him. If you fucking touch me, I'll bite you, he snarls. All Might backs up, his hands raised in a gesture of concession. Yeah, you better back up, bitch.